Hello everyone, Editing Brad here, just coming to you before the start of the episode just to let you know I apologize beforehand for my audio quality during this episode. It was recorded while I was still in the process of moving, so it's going to be a little bit lesser than usual. However, as you can tell by this, I have everything set up and good to go. So for next week's episode of Kiki's Delivery Service, everything will be fine again. But yeah. Thank y'all for listening, and I hope you enjoy the episode. Bye-bye!
Welcome or welcome back to the podcast. My name is Blue. I remembered the intro, and this is my co-host.
I'm Brad, and also good job! You remembered. I'm so proud.
I remembered. Kind of. This is BnB Anime. I forgot to say the name of the podcast.
Cut, take 37, let's go.
Retry! Welcome back to BnB Anime. This is live. Oh no! Jeez. I'm never gonna live this down, am I?
Nope. You see, I forget your name, but you screw it up, what is this, 37 times in a row?
I think it might be. I think it might be 37 times in a row, despite the fact that this is our 8th podcast. Funny that, isn't it?
It is. We've lost a lot.
Mainly
my mind. We've lost my mind a lot. That's what's happened.
Did you ever have a mind to start with?
You see, I would say I did at some point, but then I met you and it just went out the window.
Just went out the window, yeah.
I'm going to just blame you.
Just blame me? That's fine, because I never had a mind to begin with. So that's... we make a good bet.
It works. That's the whole purpose of the podcast.
Mind you, we could do better.
I see what you did there.
Such fun jokes. All the fun jokes.
All the puns. Oh, this is wonderful. Hi. This week we're discussing Rascal Does Not... What is it again?
Rascal does not
dream of Buddy Girl Senpai?
Yes, that's the one. And we'll be getting right into that after we have a bit of a chit-chat, catch up with the news of the anime worlds. And yeah.
Yeah, so, chit-chat. How have you been this week? Have you done anything fun? Are you still saving the world day by day?
I am saving the world, you know. I am that superhero that you read about in the news. Always.
You are Mask Senpai, right?
That's me. Secret identity exposed. The worst superhero that just goes around and tells everyone who they are. That's me. Yeah, no, I don't know. I've had a pretty decent week. Got quite a bit of work done, which is always nice. I've got some secret projects in the works. Ooh,
secrets. So secret even I don't know about them. She's hiding things from me.
I'm hiding a few things, but like those kids, like they'll be fun surprises at some point. But yeah.
Joy.
Yeah, but I finished another sketch yesterday, which was super fun. I did my first art stream, which was super exciting because I wasn't originally ever planning on doing an art stream. I was planning on keeping my streams pretty much specifically gaming. But I've had quite a few requests for them over the time, and I've always just kind of brushed them off. And yesterday I was like, sat down to stream, and I just really, really, really didn't want to game for some reason. Just was having a day where I was like, I don't want to, and I had this half-finished sketch that I was planning on getting done yesterday anyway, so I was like, well, you know, sod it, we'll give it a shot. It turns out everyone seemed to really enjoy it, so I think that may become something that I do more frequently in the future. I don't know, I can't promise that it's going to happen super frequently because... yeah, it was a pain in the ass to set up the cameras and stuff.
I don't doubt that at all. However, it turned out really well. Like, you did a phenomenal job.
Oh,
and
thank
especially
you.
Doing that, like, in front of a live audience, too. Like, I'm sure that had to be nerve-wracking, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I've never taken any kind of like formal art lessons other than, you know, casually in high school, and even then I passed grade 10 art with a 53%. So, yeah, I never really did much like art study. So everything that I know, I've taught myself, and I actually ended up getting a few really cool tips on stream from some of the artists in chat. And that was fun. I learned some new tips and tricks, and yeah, I did enjoy it. I enjoyed it. It was fun.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. I'm glad. And yeah, it did turn out extremely well. So good
Thank
on
you.
because
Thank you.
that's definitely not something I could do.
Yeah, well, I've been trying to talk you into doing an art stream, but you're always feeling the same way as me on it. But maybe one day it'll be one.
Maybe one day. I've been thinking about it because since we have kind of discussed taking like short skits from the podcast and trying to turn it into animations, I've thought about trying to look into getting a drawing tablet because my iPad and like doing it on my PC doesn't work since I don't have a Mac.
Right.
So it wouldn't be seamless or anything like that. So I need to get a drawing tablet and try to figure out how to get that mixed in with Illustrator or whatever damn program I need to use to actually do it and get that to work. So I don't know. Could happen in the future. Could not.
Could not. Well, yeah. If you
say Brad doesn't understand how to do things.
But yeah, no, you do some really cool digital art, and I really, really enjoy it because your style of art is so different from mine. I think that's why we both kind of get a little bit fascinated with each other's art forms, because like I'm legitimately like a pencil and piece of paper sketch artist, whereas you are digital technology, like all modern in your art. And not only that, like my sketch artistry is like realism, and you're definitely more like animated cartoon vibes. Yeah, so we're very different in our art styles. And I would be very, very interested to see you stream, because yeah, I have no idea how any of that works or how you do it at all. Like I have no clue. So it'd be super interesting to see.
So my secret is whenever I was younger, I used to trace a lot, and it used to be a lot of anime figures. And so I kind of learned how to do the lines and everything else. However, doing things digitally is phenomenal because the lines will set themselves and kind of even themselves out to where I don't have to make my lines look shitty.
I see.
So that is my secret. My lines are done for me. I mean, I have to actually draw them, but if I draw it out and then hold it, it'll straighten it out, or if it's curved, it'll flatten it out curved.
Yeah.
Most of the time, sometimes it gets real screwy and it either won't pick up the curve, or I'll do it in a manner to where it kind of acts up and it'll make it go into a straight line, and then I'm just like, and then I want to throw the iPad, but I can't because it costs money.
Yeah. See, with my style of art, what I do, there's like no lines. Like it's a big thing to say like there's no lines in realism, because you want everything to kind of like fade in from shadows from one thing to another just through like light changes, because if you have like a harsh line, then that's like an outline of something, and like when you're looking at like a bird in real life, it doesn't have an outline. So like yeah, with realism, your whole thing is that there should be no outlines to anything unless something actually does have an outline, in which case that would be really weird. But yeah.
And yeah, that's completely different with what I do, because it is very anime with a lot of things. So there are outlines and everything is there.
Yeah.
So to add depth and everything else, you have to just learn how to shade. And shading and coloring is my favorite part about anything. Like, I'm not going to lie with you. I hate drawing stuff.
Yeah.
Like, it's tedious. It takes forever. But the coloring and shading and, like, figuring out where the lines are, or like where the light source is, and figuring out what needs to be shaded where, and like where the wrinkles in the clothes are, like that is a lot of fun. It's like a really fun mystery that I have no clue what I'm going to do until it's drawn, and I'm like, okay, go.
Nice, yeah.
So, but yeah, peek into my brain of not liking to draw, but shading and coloring, it's my thing. I love it.
But what else have you been up to?
So outside of that, working a lot. Finally got my setup pieced together. So trying to figure out how I'm going to manage streaming in with my social life and everything else, but still haven't managed to piece that together yet. So I don't know. We'll
simple.
Figure
It's
out.
simple. You just be like me and don't have a social life.
I mean, you know what? You're right. But wait, what is this? Is this your social activity? Is that what this is?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. Podcasts and streams count as my social activity because I don't have any friends.
I don't count as a friend.
You do count as a friend, but you're also kind of a colleague in a weird kind of way because...
Where's my
Kind
Prickles
of.
plush? I need to go. I need something to hug. I feel bad.
I don't have any in-person friends. Literally all of my friends are digital friends. Because even my like in-person friends that I've known since high school, they emigrated. They didn't emigrate. They moved. I'm sorry. It's my immigration brain kicking in. They moved from, well, they kind of emigrated. If you consider the fact that Canada is the second largest country in the world, and they moved from one side of Canada to literally the other side of Canada, they basically emigrated.
I mean, like, isn't Canada split into like four provinces with like Quebec, Alberta, and whatever the hell the other two are?
4. Yeah, we'll go with 4. There are 4 provinces in Canada.
Was that right? Did I hit the nail on the head?
Yeah, you got BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and all of the rest.
There's more.
There's more? What about the Yukon? Anybody heard of the Yukon? The Northwest Territories? What are those? Ooh, Nova Scotia. Hi, Nova Scotia.
That just goes to show that I might have failed geography. I'm not gonna lie. Back to how we were talking about schooling before we started this podcast. Okay.
If you ask me to discuss any kind of U.S. geography, I know where Alaska is. I got that one.
Yeah, because you can see that from your backyard. I'm not sorry.
I got Alaska. I could probably do Florida, because that one kind of like sticks out a little bit.
Texas. I'm assuming.
Texas is the one that kind of looks like a Dorito with a square top. Right?
I mean, you're not wrong. It's like a Dorito with a stem.
Yeah, it's a Dorito plant leaf.
Oh, and now I want to redraw all the maps.
I don't know. Oh, I know where Washington is, because that's below BC, and I know where Montana is, because that's below Alberta. And I could probably place Michigan, because it's around by the Great Lakes.
Yeah, it's like sandwiched in between them.
Yeah. So, but like, that's about it.
Yeah.
Those are the, like, I know more than that, but where they are, I have no clue. I take it that North Carolina is above South Carolina, but like where, I'm not sure.
I don't know what gave that one away. Just like North Dakota and South Dakota, I wonder which one is which.
If your name's Dakota, is your head North Dakota and your feet South Dakota?
I need to call Dakota right now and ask him. If he wouldn't ask me what the hell I'm doing, if I were to call him, I probably would. But then, outside of that, okay, so I had a dream this week, and I had to save it till the podcast to talk about it.
Oh.
And the reason why is because it reminded me of a little anime called No Game, No Life. I don't know if you've seen it.
I've seen bits and pieces.
It's a really good anime. I really like the art style of it. The way it's colored is just, it's so good. It's so different and out there, but I love it so much. Anyway, okay, so here's the dream. So I was in my grandmother's house, and it was me, my cousin Walker, and 2 people who I don't know if I've met them. I can't tell you their names. Like, it might have been people I passed on the street. I don't know. Anyway, so we're all in the living room, sitting down, watching TV or something. And so a couple days before this happened, by the way, we had tornadoes tear through the U.S. So it tore through Tennessee, Georgia, all of that. And so I guess for some reason it decided to stick in my mind. Anyway, so come the dream, so we're all sitting there, and then we get a tornado warning on our phone. And no sooner do we get it, like my truck that is outside, like parked out front, gets just slammed through the front of the house. So we all pile into the back closet, and we're all just sitting there. And then suddenly, like, bright flash of light, and then I'm seated in front of a giant chessboard.
Okay.
And I'm playing chess.
So you went from The Wizard of Oz to Alice in Wonderland.
A little bit.
Yeah.
So I'm playing chess against God.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know.
Casual opponent.
Yeah, just real cash, okay? And so he tells me, he's like, if you win, I will return everything back to normal. So I was like, all right, just puts fingers together and cracks knuckles, like, here we go. And so we play what is probably the longest game of chess on record. Like, it feels like it took hours. And finally, like, I barely managed to scrape out a win. Like, it was something. And the only reason I did is because I got my pawn all the way across the board, got it into a queen anyway. Chess stuff, nonsense, blah blah blah. I'm not gonna bore you with the details. Anyway, so I win.
Knight
barely.
to b4.
Harry Potter.
Harry Potter.
Harry Potter must not return the chessboard. My English impression sucks.
I was going to say, you sounded kind of Indian, but we'll go with it.
Anyway, so I win. We're all teleported, I was the only one playing against God. Nobody else got to. The weight of what was going on inside this house was on my shoulders. I don't know what else happened to the rest of the world while that was going on anyway. So I get teleported back to the real world, and we come out of the closet, and everything is fine. Like, everything was literally back to normal. House wasn't destroyed. My truck wasn't trying to kiss the interior walls. Like, none of
Love that.
like, none of it. Everything is back to normal. So, like, just because it involves chess and playing against God, it reminded me of No Game, No Life. I was like, you know what? It's got to be told on the podcast.
It's going to be on the podcast. It's going to be told on the podcast. I was just playing chess against God, just cash.
And, like, here's the thing. Like, I vividly remember everything else that went on in the dream. Like, the two women that were here with me and Walker whenever it got flung through it. Like, I remember their faces. I remember everything. All I remember about God was that he was wearing a suit. Like, I don't remember his face. Like, that was blurry.
So what you're saying is it wasn't God, it was just Slenderman.
Either that or James Bond, but not Sean Connery. Like, it could have been all of them mushed together. So, I don't know. But, like, I can remember everything except what God's face
You'll
looked
know
like.
if it was Sean Connery because you'd see his chest hair poking through the shirt he was wearing.
And would probably be shouting something about being an Egyptian. I don't know.
Oh, God.
But, yeah, so that's been my weekend review, including Dream, because, Rascal does not dream of bunny girls. I don't know. Anyway, anime. Have you watched anything?
Anime? Oh, wait.
Have you read any manga? What?
I was just going to say that you may or may not notice that we are still not covering Kiki's Delivery Service. We will get there, I promise, I promise, I promise. It's just that America is stupid and doesn't have Ghibli movies available on, like, Netflix and stuff. So, our Brattle Duty Dandy, who is currently in America, is struggling to try and find a copy. But as soon as we do get that to him, then, we will be covering that.
So my setup is finally together. My VPN is bought and paid for. I'm ready to watch it.
Ready to watch.
Whenever you're ready, as long as it's before my free trial runs out of my VPN.
So next week then?
Yes, next week I'm down. And then you can pick the episode after that.
Sounds good.
Yatta!
Yatta!
But yeah, so anime, manga. Have you done any reading? Have you done any watching? If you watch sub, then you're going to be reading and watching.
That's true. I didn't think about that. Actually, no. I haven't consumed much anime or manga recently, other than Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai. I was not expecting to get as absorbed as I did.
But I told you, like, if you look at the title, and you're, like, I guarantee you, whenever I suggested that to you, I guarantee you what went through your head is, The fuck is wrong with Brad?
Well, I just thought we were going to do another comedy. And then I was like, okay, well, we've done 2 comedy episodes in a row. Like, are we doing... And then you were like, no, it's not a comedy. And I'm like, well, what the fuck is it then? Like, if it's... what? Rascal does not dream of Bunny Girl Senpai. What?
Like, anytime
What is
I've
it?
talked about this anime to anyone, like, I always tell them, like, I swear, it's not what it sounds like. Like, she wears the bunny girl outfit, what, twice?
Yeah,
That's
honestly,
it. Like,
yeah.
that's the only, like, it's only worn twice, and it's very, very minute amounts. Like, it's not focused on at all. But, my goodness.
But yeah, I got completely absorbed in it. And yeah, before I knew it, it was time to record the podcast and I hadn't consumed anything else. So yeah, no, none for me. What about you?
So I got through that,
Mm-hmm.
and then I've been absorbed in Kaguya-sama Love is War, because that's a really good rom-com, and not gonna lie, that's probably gonna be my next pick for the podcast, because I think you'll love it.
Nice.
Like,
Nice, I will.
It's a phenomenal watch. So basically the 2 main characters like each other, but like they refuse to confess to the other, and in fact it's their mission to make the other confess to them.
Oh,
and
that's cute.
Like, it's
and frustrating. I bet that would be frustrating. You're just like, just admit it.
Oh yeah, like the whole time you're like, y'all are being real baka right now.
You're being real baka.
But the reason it's probably one of my favorite rom-coms is because the pink-haired girl, Chica, that you've had me send gifs of a lot, probably one of my favorite female characters of anime. Like, of all time. Like, she's hilarious. Like, she makes the show. It's so good.
Nice. Yeah, you know what? I was just thinking, I'm obsessed with sports anime, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we are yet to cover a sports anime. So I think my next pick after Kiki's Delivery Service, I'm fairly certain we're going to be covering sports anime there, my dude.
I'm down. I am always down.
Yeah.
I'm just down for anime in general, so...
Down for anime in general. Yeah, sports anime is... Like, sports anime and slice of life are my 2 absolute favorite genres of anime ever, because sports animes are usually slice of life, unless you're watching, like, Prince of Tennis, where everyone has freaking superpowers, or, like, Eye Shield and Nijirichi, which is an American football one, which is the only reason why I know rules about American football is because of that anime. Because I didn't know nothing about American football. Who knows stuff about American football?
Americans.
Americans? Oh, okay. One thing that makes me laugh about America is your freaking, like, World Series, and it's just Americans. It makes me laugh so hard. I'm just like, yeah, we got the one best baseball thing ever. Okay, so we've got statewide teams. And I'm like...
But you know what state doesn't have a team in the major league?
Oh, yeah?
Tennessee. Like, it's been talked about for ages to, like, bring a team to Nashville, and we still haven't gotten it. But we have an American football team, though. You bet your ass we got one of those. Wait, I don't think we have a basketball team either.
It's like all American sports are just played in America and the rest of the world doesn't care. And it makes me laugh so hard because you're so hyped about it. Like, the Super Bowl is like such a big thing for you. And the rest of the world's just like, what are you doing over there, America? Are you good? Like, are you good, fam? Like,
well, to be fair, we got a lot more sports than the rest of the world.
But, like, you don't have some of the world's biggest sports. Like, okay, so soccer or football, you've kind of caught on with now. You're up there in the World Cup when that's on. Like, you...
we actually have a really decent soccer team.
Yeah,
like,
you're
the
getting
soccer team out of Atlanta, like, they are pretty damn good.
You're
but
getting
outside of that, we don't have anything else on an international scale.
Like, rugby or cricket are 2 of the world's biggest sports, and you don't have either of them. Like they
we do have rugby, but not at a professional level.
Yeah, like you don't compete. And I'm just like, Americans are so, like, up there with, like, when the Olympics come around, you're, like, in it. You're like, yeah, these are our sports. Like, go athletes. We're so cool. Like, good. And it's awesome to see because, like, you're pushing your athletes so hard. But in some of the world's biggest sports, like internationally, you just kind of take a back seat. And that's always like kind of confused the rest of the world, because you could absolutely be up there in rugby and cricket as one of the best teams because of your population size, your funding towards sports, like all of this kinds of stuff. If you put the foundations there, you could easily be up there in like top teams. You just don't have that foundation. And it's, I don't know, it's kind of strange, I think, for the rest of the world who are so obsessed with these sports that just kind of look over at America, and you've just got your whole own thing going on with sports that we don't know about.
Well, okay, look, we're still the baby of the world.
That's
okay?
true. But you're not as baby.
Might catch on.
I think Canada's more of a baby than America, right?
I don't know.
Oh, come on, I just took my citizenship test. Remember.
Shame on you.
Yeah, I feel like Canada became an independent country after America did. Well, it's still part of the Commonwealth, but you know what I mean. Like, Canada was named a country after America was named a country.
I don't know. Like, I know a lot about world history. I know absolutely nothing about Canada outside of I know
Rude.
you. And I know Letterkenny. That's about it.
Learn about thy brethren. We are the north of you.
But I mean...
But I don't know about you, so it's cool.
That's okay. I forget your name, so, you know, it
That's
happens.
true. Yeah.
Okay, so news. Where did my news tab go? There's my news tab. Okay. I'm trying to be more professional now.
Trying to be the professional.
Okay, so news for the week. The Devil is a Part-Timer light novel series is going to end on its 21st volume this summer.
Oh, okay.
So, have you seen The Devil is a Part-Timer?
I can't remember if I've seen it or if I've read the manga, but I've consumed it in some form.
It's great. The manga's great. I love it. Just thinking of the devil working at McDonald's humors me to no end.
Yeah.
It's such a phenomenal concept. He's like, I am this all-powerful person, but I have to work a minimum wage job. Like, I don't know. It's great. But I'm so upset that we haven't got a second season. Like, the manga is going to hit its 21st volume. We've got one season. Like,
Need more.
I've been begging for a second season of this for ages. Like, I just want it.
I want it. I want the second season.
Who knows, though? We might get it one day. We might not. I don't know. But second piece of news, but although they kind of like tie in with the second and third piece. Anyway, Netflix is going to start streaming One Piece on June 12th.
Oh.
So,
Okay then.
But here's the curious part about that. I wonder if Netflix is going to pull a Netflix and only keep like 25 episodes.
Yeah, I was going to think about that. Are they going to start from like the beginning, or are they going to go from halfway through?
Well, the thing about it is Netflix doesn't simulcast.
Yeah.
So, well, they simulcast everywhere except for the U.S. So, like Violet Evergarden, whenever it was coming out, y'all could watch it week to week, whereas for us, we had to wait for all 12 episodes to be finished.
Yeah.
Plus longer.
Yeah.
So dumb. I'm so glad I have a VPN now. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I don't know how they're going to do it. I haven't read into it, but I'm just like, you know what? I don't know if their servers can handle all 1,000 episodes.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It could
I'm
not.
still mad at Netflix because I was talking about stuff that I was consuming on Netflix on the stream the other day, and I was saying, I've been watching this cool British show about the Bletchley Circle during World War II, which is just basically a group of women who were code breakers during the Second World War when all of the men were off doing other things, and they were like kept under the Official Secrets Act for many, many years. And it was only like in like the 80s or something when it was all revealed. And these women had then like gotten married and had kids and like all this kind of stuff, and were in their like getting to their elderly age, and they had never disclosed anything because they'd signed the Official Secrets Act. You know, if they had said anything, they would have gone to jail for life. Mm-hmm. So they kept this all secret from their husbands, from their kids, from everybody. And then all of a sudden it was like, fully disclosed about the Bletchley Circle. Really cool part of history if you guys are interested in that kind of stuff. But they did this British TV series about some of the women who were working in the Bletchley Circle and the co-breaking thing that went to go and solve a couple like murder mysteries afterwards. And it was just like this group of women going around and basically kind of Sherlock Holmesing it, but as code-breakers. And it was a really cool series. And I got through season 1, which is 3 episodes of each were about an hour long. I think it's just called The Bletchley Circle. And I was about to watch the second season, and I just told everyone on stream that it was super awesome and they should go onto Netflix and check it out. And I watched the first episode of the second season, and then I go back to Netflix to check it out, and they've taken it off of Netflix halfway through the second season, and I can't find it anywhere. And like, yeah, I think it's a ITV show, not BBC in the UK, but I'm not sure. I think it's ITV. And I can't find it anywhere else on a Canadian site to see. And I'm like 1 episode into the second season, and I'm so mad at Netflix. I'm like, I just told everyone on my stream to go check it out, and then you take it off? How rude.
Well, boo.
Well, boo.
That's not fun at all. Way to go,
so
Netflix. Yeah. Way to be a bunch of jerks.
I know. I'm like, couldn't they have watched my stream and known? Like, seriously, they should pay attention to my streams. I'm important, okay?
Yes, Blue is so important. Watch our streams. Twitch.tv/Blue Lavender. With an A.
It's like a what plug?
Not an E.
With an A. Blue Lavender. Because I am not the ender.
I want to go home.
Aren't you home?
Shh. You're ruining the illusion.
Okay, fine.
I built this studio for us, damn it.
I built this studio. Rock and roll.
Beautiful.
No?
I love it. 10 out
Okay,
of 10.
thanks. Okay, cool.
And then Netflix will also start streaming Avatar: The Last Airbender on May 15th.
Yeah, for you Americans, it's already been on Netflix in Canada for like 4 years already. I watched it through like 5 times.
Baka. I have actually not seen Avatar.
You've not... Change that.
I plan on it at some point.
Seriously, it's
Future
really good.
podcast episode idea. We should probably cover that.
Technically not anime, but it's really good.
You know, the way they did it, because I've seen like clips of the show and everything, even though it's not anime, I think
it's pretty much anime.
Yeah, like that's...
Yeah. It's kind of a debate as to whether or not it is anime, but because, it was, I think a lot of people that worked on it had previously worked in anime, and yeah, it's very close to anime, it's just not Japanese, and I can't remember who produced it, Nickelodeon, yeah, but like, it's really good, it's genuinely really good.
And that's what I've heard, so...
I haven't seen...
You should watch that at some
I haven't
point.
seen the second one, though, about Aang's kid Korra, I think. But
oh, that's right. They did do a spin-off.
Yeah, I
about
haven't
Korra,
seen that
like
one.
The Legend of Korra or something like that.
Yeah. Apparently, that one's not as good, according to my 2 best friends from high school. They don't like that one, but other people have said that it's good. So yeah, but they told me not to watch it because it would ruin the first one for me, and they know my watch tastes, so I've just kind of taken that recommendation and not watched it. But if you guys...
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks, guys. But if a lot of people say that it is good, then maybe I'll check it out.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to check out Avatar at some point.
Yeah.
And then, so Sunrise Studio is opening a background animation school in 2021.
Oh.
And we all know Sunrise Studio. We talked about something they did 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Cowboy Bebop, Gundam, Gintama, The Daily Lives of High School Boys, you know, all that fun stuff.
All that fun stuff.
But yeah, the fact that they're opening a background animation school, like, that's legit.
That is legit. That's super legit.
I wonder if I can attend. I'd like to go. I'd like to learn how to do backgrounds.
I'd love to go. I can do realism.
Which I feel like with your realism abilities, though, like, I feel like you would excel with background animation, though.
I really want to give it a shot. Like, it's one thing that I definitely want to try, but I've never done any kind of digital art. So, yeah, because I've always wanted to try, like, doing the background stuff for, like, manga. But yeah, I can't do any of the like important details of like the main characters or anything. That is so not my like area of expertise. But like I used to do cityscapes when I was in high school. And those were super, super fun to do, to like find a pinpoint perspective and then like draw down a street. So it's like everything going to this tiny little pinpoint. And I used to enjoy that so much. Because that's just like getting a ruler and going ham. And yeah, I don't know, it was great fun. So I would be super down to do something like that. So if they accept international students, then I'd love to go.
Let's do it. But however, what I'm hearing is that all we need to do is find somebody to draw the characters. I'll do all the shading and coloring, and you can do the background work, and then boom, we have storyboards.
Sounds
for
good.
Whatever we need to do.
Yeah, sounds
Ever.
good. Ever.
And for the last piece of news, if I could find my phone that has all the pictures on it. Oh shit. So, I have a list of all of the delays so far for all of the animes.
Ooh.
Although I did take these about 2 or 3 days ago, so that could have changed between now and then. However, for shows, we have, and these are all subbed, by the way, so I'll get to the dub in a minute.
Okay.
So you have SAO Part 2, ReZero the second season, Idolish second beat, Food Wars, No Guns Life, My Teen Romantic Comedy Snafu, Ha Tina, I don't know, I can't pronounce that. Diary of Our Days at the Breakwater, Pokemon. And that's one thing that kind of shocked me. Like, for all the things to get pushed back, Pokemon being one of them, like, that's a surprise.
Yeah.
Because as long as Pokemon has been around and been out, like, I think this is the first time, like, anything like that's ever happened to it. So that one was a shock, but so was One Piece. Because One Piece has also been delayed.
Yeah.
Then outside of that, Boruto has been delayed. The Fate Stay Night film has been delayed, given.
Right.
Evangelion.
Right.
Its film got delayed. Detective Conan, Violet Evergarden, Doraemon, which I have no clue. I've heard it was
Doraemon,
good, but
yeah.
know nothing about that. And then Crunchyroll has also released a list of conventions that have been delayed as well.
A list of shit that's been delayed.
This whole list of shit, all of it. You can find all of that at crunchyroll.com/wherever the fuck they posted the damn delays.
You good, fam?
I'm fine. I'm tired. I walked a lot today.
Oh.
And then as far as English dubs that have been delayed, so all of the simuldubs that Funimation had planned for spring have been delayed. And then some of the winter simuldubs that have been delayed. Bofuri has been delayed from episode 9 on. Smile Down the Runway, Darwin's Game, and then, of course, SAO, since it's been completely delayed, then it's going to be delayed as well for the dub. So. But yeah, that's a lot of delays.
So much, yeah.
But at least we finally have a comprehensive list on all of it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with this autumn season, because obviously autumn is like the biggest time when anime comes out anyway. Like if it's a big anime that's going to be dropping, it drops in the autumn, you know? But this autumn, I mean, if all of this stuff from spring gets delayed until autumn, this autumn is going to be nuts for new anime that's released, unless they push back all of the autumn stuff as well and everything just gets pushed back a season.
I mean, it would be smart to do that because it seems like a lot of the stuff that's getting delayed right now is getting pushed back to July.
Right.
So
it's the summer
seems
season.
to be like it's going to be stacked. However, so if all that's getting delayed until then, it's like you said, does everything else from then get pushed back?
Yeah.
Or is the summer stuff all going to be running at the same time? Because you have to imagine the TV time slots are already set.
Yeah, I was going to say because that didn't occur to me because we always watch everything online, but for the TV time slots, it's going to be kind of a fight for, I mean, the big studios are probably going to take all the big time slots because they can afford to pay the prices of that. But what are they going to fill in the meantime with? Like, because Japanese TV, I'm assuming, is still going. So all of these slots that were originally held for these animes, are they just going to fill them in with reruns? Like, what's playing now?
I have no clue,
Yeah.
but you know who we can ask? We we have a mutual friend that we can ask about this that's over there right now.
That's true. We do.
Hi, mutual friend. You know who you are.
You do know who you are. Yes, we will have to get into contact with her and see if she can figure it out.
Yeah, because we need answers to this at this point because I'm very curious.
Yeah, I'm super curious too.
Yeah, because talking to me about Pokemon the other day, and he was just like, because he knows how everything is done. So he's like, it's odd to see anime, because he was asking, like, if I had any idea about how, like, anime had its run schedule. And I'm like, I think they basically do it week to week. Like, they might have it all storyboarded out and everything, but I think a lot of the animations and stuff happen on a week-to-week basis. Because that's why, like, Dragon Ball Super, like, I'll have to send you some of the clips, because some of the early stuff from, like, the first 30 episodes, like, at that time, they were all being done with, like, a different animation studio every week, because they could not keep up with the workload. And so some of the animation quality, like, it was some really bad dips. Like, it was bad.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting because normally the only kind of like week to week thing that you have is when it's like a live show, like in North America and in kind of this like the Western world, it's the only thing that's week to week is like late night shows but even then like some late night shows pre-record months in advance and then show them out. It's only ones that are up like that do like current event news and stuff that film them week to week. It's very interesting that they do, because you'd never see that with like SpongeBob or something,
Yeah, like that stuff, like you'd have to think, especially since it's done in seasons, like at least American stuff, like
it's all pre-done,
like weeks and weeks, if not months in advance, except for, I think South Park, because South Park is like very up to date with its current events, but outside of that, like all of that's done well before, so that's, I don't know, it's interesting though.
It is very interesting.
I need answers. Like, I really need to, like, talk to somebody in the Japanese anime industry and just be like, all right, explain everything. Because
I'm super curious, too. Yeah, when I'm over there, I'll have to see if... I know they've got quite a lot of, like, animation museums and stuff. I'll have to see if I can go there and maybe learn some things, and we'll see.
Yes, teach me all the things. Because you'll know all the things. You will officially be Anime Senpai. Since I think we're right about even right now on total time watched.
I think we probably are. Although if I make you watch Prince of Tennis, then you'll definitely have me beat.
Well, I would assume you would be rewatching it all with me.
Yeah, probably. Although I've watched it twice through and done a full detailed report on it the last time I watched it. So we'll see. But I probably, that's not going to be for the first sports anime that we cover. This one is not going to be Prince of Tennis because, oh my God,
so listen,
many
there's
episodes.
Going to be like a month delay between podcast episodes. No, we'll have to pre-record a lot. So whenever that happens, if there's not news, you know why.
Well, we'll definitely be pre-recording when I'm in Japan, and I'm going to be in Japan for 3 weeks. So there's going to be a bit of a break for news then, but my Japanese trip is still kind of up in the air right now. I am going in the middle of July, so I'm just waiting to see what the airlines say, what the world says, what everything looks like then. I've still got some time, but I
hope you're
able
to go, because I'm like, I know it's always been your dream to go, just like it's always been mine to go as well, so I know that would suck.
It would suck, but I mean, it's not going to stop me from going. It would just postpone it,
Oh, yeah. And, of course, health and safety of the world and everybody else is kind of first in all this. By the way, everybody stay safe, please. I realize we've been saying that for just about every episode that we've had so far. Please, stay safe. Stay healthy.
Especially right now. A lot of people are going back to work and going out and interacting with people again. Social distancing is kind of relaxing, and we're not over it yet. So stay at home if you can. If you're not a critical worker, what are they? Essential, thank you. If you're not an essential worker and you're not on a grocery run, please stay at home. I know that it's now warming up a bit and looks like summer and all fun times, but we're not over it yet. So, But anyways, any more news?
No, that was it. No? I just figured I'd end with like the total list of delays because that would take a minute. So that's kind of all I got about news. So you know what that means. Ding, 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 ding. Time to talk about the topic.
You talk about the topic? So what about the studio of the topic? What's all that about?
So, the studio that did this one is Cloverworks, which, okay, so, Cloverworks.
Mm-hmm.
I like to talk about the studio.
I'd like to talk about the studio. What about studio?
Darling in the Franxx.
Oh.
That's why. Darling in the Franxx is such a good anime.
That is there. Mm-hmm.
I can't say enough about it. Darling in the Franxx is amazing. Minus the last episode. That last episode pissed me off. But for the first 22 episodes, it's a beautifully done anime. Mm-hmm. So phenomenal. I love it. It definitely gave me probably my favorite female anime character of all time. I have the statue somewhere in a box because I'm still living out of boxes. But yeah, like, it is wonderful. I can't speak highly enough about it. Besides episode 23. Because in my opinion, it's a cop-out. Everybody else that I've talked to about it actually seemed to like it. So I'm just the oddball out here. So sorry.
So sorry.
But outside of that, they've also done the Persona 5 anime. Mm-hmm. They did the final season of Fairy Tail, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me as to why they would swap studios for the final season. But hey, that's up to them.
Yeah.
And then the standout show, in my opinion, of 2019, The Promised Neverland. I love The Promised Neverland. I realize I've probably said that at least once or twice since we started the podcast. Mm-hmm. But the way they animated emotion, and especially just the pure fear in that show, I've never seen facial expressions done as well as it was in that show. Like, that is, it's so good. Highly recommend. 10 out of 10. Great anime.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely have to add it to the to-watch list eventually. We've got such a big list. Speaking of lists, if you guys want to recommend an anime, just a smooth transition right there. If you guys want to recommend an anime for us to cover on this podcast, you can do so via the comment section on any of our streaming site things, and also on all of our social medias. Our website has recently had a little bit of a glow up, so if you want to go check that out at bnbanime.podbean.com, you can go find all of the links there to all of the different platforms that we stream the podcast on, and all of our social media links are all there, along with an archive of all of our previous episodes. You can listen to them and download them right there. It's a good way to find everything, is by heading on over to the website. Plus, it looks pretty now.
It does. It looks so pretty. Wait.
So pretty.
Wait a second. What was with that accent just now? Are you throwing jabs at me?
No.
I am hurt.
I wasn't throwing no jabs at you.
Yeah, but how would you like it if I talk like this?
What the heck was that?
I don't know. I'm sorry.
Did you just say, yeah, bud? And expect... Yeah, bud. Yeah, bud. So English, I know every single English person is just like, yeah, bud.
I was going more Canadian.
That was Canadian?
We have seen what happens when I try to do English. It does not turn out well at all.
I don't. Oh, good. Okay. You're fantastic at accents, You should just keep that up.
I have no words. I need to do something with my life at this point.
Anyway, so more about the background of the anime?
Yeah, so the manga was written by Hajime Kamoshida and illustrated by Tsugumi Nanamiya, and it ran from January 2016 to present with a total of 4 volumes out so far. So there seems like they're doing about a volume a year. Mm-hmm. Kind of give or take, although I know the film just came out and I still need to watch that.
Yeah, I also need to watch it.
Because from my understanding, the film takes place like right after the show ends. And the show, I don't know about you, but it left me like dying for more.
I know. It took so much restraint not to watch it because I didn't want to watch it and then confuse what happened in the movie with what happened in the anime. So I didn't watch it specifically this week, even though I have had the ability to. I was like, no, I'm gonna wait, I'm gonna hold off, and I'm fairly certain that I'm watching it tonight. I just really didn't want to get anything confused and blended together, so I kept them separate. But yeah, I'm like itching to watch it.
Yeah, like I'm chomping at the bit too, but also I kind of held off on watching it because I'm like, you know what? Future podcast episode.
We could definitely do a future podcast episode on the movie.
Because I really want to watch it, but also I didn't want this episode to be 5 hours long, trying to cover 12 episodes plus a film.
Yeah, 13 episodes.
You're right.
13 episodes.
I'm sorry.
Get it right, you.
You, whatever your name is.
Whenever your name is, go sit in the corner.
I will. I made the cactus corner and I'll go sit at it. And the anime was, like I said, it was done by Cloverworks and it was directed by Shoichi Masui. And some other stuff that he has worked on is Scrapped Princess, Sakura Quest, Chaika the Coffin Princess, Chaika the Coffin Princess, Avenging Battle, and Brotherhood Final Fantasy 15. And the anime ran originally from October 4th to December 27th, 2018. That's it. That's background info.
That's the background info.
Aha, we did it.
We did it. So a brief rundown of the show before I chuck up the spoiler warning is, first of all, it's fantastic. Please go watch it. Just getting that out of the way first, because I'm fairly certain we're going to say that 5 million times throughout this entire episode, as we do every single episode, because so far we haven't covered something that we didn't like. Yeah, so basically, we have your main character, Sakuta, who is a high schooler, and he is... I don't know, he's just like an ordinary high schooler. He's got a bit of a bad reputation about him, though. Nobody in school likes him because he supposedly sent 3 people to the hospital the year prior. 2 years beforehand. Yeah, he supposedly sent 3 people to the hospital, and so he's got a really bad reputation about him, and nobody really interacts with him. Until one day he is walking into a library when he sees his senpai, I'm so bad with names.
Mai.
Sakura Jima and Sakura Jima? Sure. And she's in the library and she is wearing a bunny girl costume. So like picture like the tights, the red bodysuit, and then the ears, the much more sensual version of the bunny girl costume. She's not wearing like a bunny onesie or whatever. And she's running up to people and running into their faces and stuff, and they just don't see her. They can't see her, have no like visuals of her or whatever. And it's basically about him helping her with what's called as adolescence syndrome or puberty syndrome. Halfway through the sub, they change it. They start off with it being adolescent syndrome, and then towards like episode 9, they stop calling it adolescent syndrome and they start calling it puberty syndrome. So I think they had a different translator work on the sub, at least on the Crunchyroll sub. I think, yeah, they had a different translator, so they changed it from adolescence to puberty syndrome, but it's the same thing. And basically, like, he talks to her that she has this, and it's about the two of them developing a relationship together. It's also about Sakuta's younger sister. Mai's younger sister actually comes into it as well, and there are a bunch of other characters, and it's about the development of adolescent syndrome, which is basically when a teenager experiences some kind of devastating emotional impact. Something kind of supernatural happens, whether or not that is, in Mai's case, where people can't see her, or you find out later about Sakuta's case. Actually, quite early on, you find out about his case, but you find out more as it develops. I'm not going to talk about his. You find out about his younger sister. You find out about, like, her younger sister ends up having things happen to her as well. And it could be anything from physical damage to body swapping to disappearing from the world, all sorts of different things. Duplication, people like becoming like two of you. And yeah, it's about helping solve the issues of the people that are experiencing adolescent syndrome, because as their psychological happenings kind of get more dealt with, then circumstances change. And yeah, so I think that's the best way I can describe it without spoiling anything. Did you have anything to add, Brad?
No, that's basically a really good summary that we managed to get through without spoiling for the first time ever. So, great job.
Yeah. So I think that the art style and the music is kind of... The art style and music it's kind of middle of the road. I mean, they're nothing to write home about. I don't think that they're like... Well, you don't watch it for the art style and music. You watch it for the writing. The writing is fantastic. The voice acting is really good. But yeah, just comments on the specifically art style and the music. It's not phenomenal. It's not anything that... It's not that it's not phenomenal. It's just that it's not special. That sounds really bad. But it's like it's not... notable, you know? It works for the anime. It doesn't hinder the anime. It does its job. And you don't notice it when you're watching it. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's not particularly different in any way to anything else. What do you think?
It has its moments. Like, there's a few shots where, like, it has moments of brilliance, especially whenever it comes to the sea. Like, some of the stuff that happens on the beach and some of the sunsets. But outside of that, there's nothing to where you just look at it and you're just like, you know, that's beautiful. And with the music, it doesn't necessarily add anything at any point. It doesn't detract either. Mm-hmm. But, and so, I mean, I guess that's a good thing. Like, you just don't...
Yeah, you don't notice it. Yeah. One thing I will say is that throughout the anime, you do see bruising and cuts and scarring. And in the bruising, a couple of times I didn't see it necessarily as a bruise with the art style. It didn't look like a bruise to me. It looked like a burn or something. I don't know. It didn't look like a bruise, and it was kind of...
But I think that could have been changed a little bit by the shading. Like, it was a bit too red.
I agree. Yeah, and it got a little bit confusing for me then, because I was like, what's that? And then it was like, oh, okay, that's what it was, you know? Mm-hmm. So that was one note that I did have. But I will say that there is one moment in the anime that there is a specific noise effect that was incredibly impactful, not just to myself, but I scrolled down in the comments, and all of the comments on that particular episode was that specific sound effect was very, very impactful and freaky and awesome in the sense that it did, like, do its job of, like, being like, oh, bleh. Yeah. And that's kind of what needed to be at that moment. So yeah, the sound effects are good. I think, yeah, the sound people did well. The voice actors did a really good job. But yeah, nothing to really write home about on the music or animation front.
I agree 100%. Mm-hmm. And I'm honestly curious whenever we're going over this to hear you talk about what you're talking about, because I'm lost.
Mm-hmm. You're lost? You don't know? Okay.
I'm very lost.
Yeah. Well, let's pop up the spoiler warning then for all of you guys who haven't seen the show. Please go watch it. Then come on back and enjoy our discussion. If you enjoy spoilers, though, then go ahead and keep listening. But yeah, spoiler warning officially up.
Enjoy your spoiler hat, because now it's time to get into it. Yeah, okay, so episode 1 is just basically, is called My Senpai is a Bunny Girl.
And yeah, it's basically Sakata wakes up in his apartment on May 6th, I think it is.
The 29th of May.
May 29th, sorry. And he reads the diary entry from May 6th. That's what it was.
Yes.
From, like, dating back to... And he reads that he met a wild bunny girl that day. And then it kind of flashes back to that day. But you don't see that it's a flashback. It just does it. And then later on, you make the connection that it was a flashback. But it seems like he read that entry and then that happened later. Which I thought was really clever.
It was, because it's like, okay, here's a clip of, like, why would he be reading this?
Yeah.
But also, like, during that first little bit, Mai's name is blurred out. So you have no clue, like, what name is actually written there. Because all it says is everything that is written here is true.
Yeah.
And so, and you need to read it completely and fully. And then it flashes back to, like, quote unquote current day.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And Sakuta goes to the library, and that's when he sees his senpai and former child star Mai running up to people in the sexy bunny girl costume, but no one seems to notice her except for him. She basically then just makes him promise that he's not going to tell anybody, and leaves, and that's their basic interaction. A few days later, he stops a fan from sneak picking her, so like taking a sneak photograph of her, while she's in her school uniform because she goes to the same school as him, hence her being his senpai. And they end up talking some more. And Mai ends up revealing that she did some research on Sakuta, and that she basically discovered the hospital incident, that he sent 3 guys to the hospital, supposedly. And he asks her what she thinks about it. She's like, I don't believe that you actually did it, because if you did it, you wouldn't be allowed at school. And they discuss the fact that he's been alienated at school because of this. And yeah, so he ends up taking Mai to his apartment and explains about his sister, who his sister was cyberbullied so badly that she ended up isolating herself in the apartment, doesn't really leave the house at all. And he also explains that one day she walked into his bedroom, and cuts and bruises just magically started appearing on her skin out of nowhere. And then he woke up the next morning in the hospital himself, with 3 long gashes across his chest that left a scar, which it stays throughout the entire anime. You see the scar. What did you think of the drawing of his scar? Because it's very similar to the art style of other scars from other shows. What do you think of the overall scar look in animes?
So it's one of those things where it is very universal, but on specifically for this show, I don't see how you could look at those and then, because they talk about it later in the show of they try to say it was self-inflicted.
Yeah.
But you look at the size of those and you're just like...
It looks like a bear got him or something, yeah.
Yeah, it looks like something just tore into him. I think... I don't know, because whenever you look at scars overall, they aren't, or in real life, scars are just very slightly miscolored, if not even miscolored at all, and they're just indentations in the skin, whereas in anime, they're vastly discolored and there to, I guess, kind of draw attention to themselves. So, I don't know, in this case, it was, like I said, it was odd whenever they brought it up as a plot point of him being yeah, they thought it was self-inflicted and all this, and yet, there's no way.
Yeah, I also did have a problem later on in, I think it's the final episode with his scar, that if I remember, I'll talk about it later, because we're not anywhere near there yet, but, yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about anime scars, because, yeah, they do just look like a patch of discolored skin. They look like just a different skin color for a bit, like you got vitiligo or something. I don't know how else they would do them, though, because obviously they have to be dramatic enough for you to immediately recognize what they are, but they don't look like scars, in my opinion.
Yeah, they really don't. I've seen some shows do it, and it seems okay, Food Wars, for instance, the scar that's above Soma's eyebrow, that's not, it doesn't necessarily draw attention to it. It just seems like it's a part of him. So in a case like that, where it's not massively discolored, it's just kind of there, but no attention's brought to it or anything like that, that's fine. But then whenever, like you said, it's just a massive patch of, discolored skin, it's just nah, that's not very realistic, and especially in the show with its overarching lack of detail. Yeah. It's still a nice show, but the animation isn't very detailed in a lot of spots, especially on the people. It's very
simplified.
It's not minimal by any means, but it's just simple. So I don't know, but in this case, it was just kind of the scars are just kind of in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, is that it was such an important plot point, that it's not a scar in Food Wars where it's not even a thing, it's an important, or even it's an important plot point. It's a moment that is heavily discussed multiple times throughout the anime and shown, and it's a moment of trauma and impact that kind of, has a reoccurring theme to it. It's an integral part of the anime. Without the scar, it changes the anime. I think, in my opinion, it would have been better if they had put more detail into the artwork of it, because it is such an important plot point. If it had just been, mentioned once at the beginning and then kind of left, but it's just part of his character design, then yeah, okay, maybe not so important to make it, heavily detailed, because it just ends up becoming like a feature of him, like his hair color or whatever. It's just he has a scar. But because it's such an important plot point, I feel like they did a disservice to themselves by not making it artistically important, because it's like in the storyline it's important, so it should be just as important artistically, and it wasn't.
I agree 100%.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, he then explains to Mai about the idea of adolescent syndrome. And then a little later on, he works a part-time job at like a restaurant, a diner kind of thing. And at the diner, there ends up being a customer that comes and sits down at his booth, that starts asking about his story and wants a picture of his chest, and turns out she's a reporter. And then as the episode progresses, you find out that Mai is slowly ceasing to exist in their world, basically. She's not just being forgotten, like, she's disappearing. And that's kind of episode 1. And then episode 2 is called On First Dates, Trouble is Essential. Mai is disappearing dramatically quickly by this point. So Sakuta decides to sell his scar picture for some background information on her to basically try and persuade her to go back into the showbiz industry. So she was a child star. She started at like age 6, being in a drama. And her mother was the one who wanted to put her in there. Her mother is like a agent, runs an agency, and wanted her to be like a big superstar. And so she explains later on why her mom ended up getting into the showbiz industry, but at this point you just know that her mom's kind of an agent and her manager, and she left the showbiz industry supposedly to get a proper education. That's what was said to the public. But realistically, it was because Mai and her mom had a bit of a rocky relationship and she didn't want to be around her mom anymore. And it ends up explaining that she was made to go to a photo shoot, and in the photo shoot for a magazine, she was in middle school at this point, like 7th grade, I think it says. She had said, okay, I'll do the shoot, but one thing is that I don't want to wear a bikini. And then she gets to the shoot, and her mom has approved her wearing a bikini, despite her objections. And she had to go with the shoot. They'd already signed the contract, so she had to take all of these photographs feeling incredibly uncomfortable in a bikini, despite the fact that she didn't want to, because she was, like, I don't know, how old's a 7th grader? Like 12.
Yeah.
So she ended up having, like, a really bad argument with her mom, and that caused her to leave the showbiz industry. But yeah, so Sakuta and Mai end up going on a date, but while they're out, they start realizing that people can't see her even more than normal. And when they're supposed to meet up with her mother to have a conversation about showbiz, because Mai decides that she, when Mai discovers that Sakuta tried to sell a picture of his scar for the showbiz industry, for information on her, to go back to the showbiz industry, she decides that she's going to go back on her own, and she ends up convincing the reporter not to post the pictures, and basically like says, I'll give you an exclusive interview about me going back into the showbiz industry if you don't post the pictures of his chest, and I'm not going to go back to my mom's agency, I'm going to go to a different agency. And so then she's like, okay, well, now I need to have a conversation with my mom. And so she goes to the beach to meet up with her mom, with Sakuta. And when her mom gets there, her mom can't see her, walks right past her, doesn't know she's there. So then they decide to go out of town together. They hop on a train and decide to go out of town to see if she ends up being visible to anybody there, because basically they're following the points of, like, she's being forgotten in the showbiz industry, people can't remember her being a name, like, can't see her, she can't, like, buy food, like, she's invisible. So they start thinking, oh, maybe it's just because the atmosphere from around where you are right now is affecting people's memories. So if we go outside of town, then maybe people are going to remember you. So they go outside of town to try and find out if people can see if she's there. And when they are out of town, they have such a cute relationship, such a cute dynamic. They end up having a bit of a heart-to-heart. They get to know each other more and stuff like that. But after some phone calls, they realize that all of the students can still remember her. And Sakuto ends up sharing his first love story as well, about Shoto, who was basically the girl who saved him when his life was going to crap. And then she just disappeared and was no longer a thing. So yeah, they basically just have like a huge heart-to-heart together in episode 2. You might see.
I mean, so one thing I will talk about, their heart-to-heart at the hotel, like, that was really nice, but also bed-sharing trope.
Yeah.
But, well, it was great, though. Like, I enjoyed it. Like, it was a really sweet moment, like, the dynamic of, like, okay, I'm gonna go take a shower. Don't you dare fucking peek. And he... So, Sakuta's... like, his personality is amazing.
Oh my god. Okay, so people say that, like, Japanese shows don't really understand sarcasm, but this show is just sarcasm on a stick. It's so funny.
And it's just, like, just the way they portray him, to where, like, they make it seem like he's a masochist, because, like, every time she stamps on his foot, he's just like, I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And he's like, you know, as long as my son's touching me, then I'm happy.
Yeah, they have a really cute relationship.
Yeah, and then at this point, like, because she goes to get in the shower and she's like, don't you dare peek on me. And he's like, that's okay. Just hearing the shower run in the background is good enough.
And then he's so upset because he's on the phone the entire time that she's in the shower, and then he gets off the phone and the shower ends and he's like, I missed it.
It's so great. It's a nice little moment. But another point about this episode, too, was whenever they go to meet Mai's mom, like, she completely blows past Mai and walks up to Sakuta and is like, why did you send me this email? Like, this isn't funny. And he's just like, I'm not the one who sent it. Like, your daughter's right there. And so the mom pulls out the phone and she's like, I don't have a daughter. And, like, pulls out the thing, and the sent line on the email address is blank.
Yeah, it's blurred the same way as the letter is in the first episode.
Yeah, and, like, just seeing Mai's face, it's just like, oh, like,
it's heart-wrenching.
Yeah, it really is heart-wrenching. However, I will say, there is a cry counter in this show. It doesn't come until later, like the last 3 episodes, but there is a cry counter. It does exist.
I did only cry once while watching this show. But I will say that the reason probably why is because I binge watched it, and by the time I was on the last episode, it was like 6 a.m. So, because I couldn't stop watching it. It's very addictive. But yeah, the relationship between Sakuto and Mai is really, really cute because they hit it off from the very beginning. They just kind of click. And despite the fact that this show could have very easily become a harem, it very much doesn't. I mean, yeah, there is the little sister, and then there's easily like 3 or 4 girls, 5 girls to be honest, that could have all fallen in love with him and be like fighting over him and stuff. But even there is a little bit of the little sister trope kind of thing going, but it's also, I mean, it is a thing, but it's also not, because it's explained later on. So I don't know, it's like, it's tricky, but, like, I definitely wouldn't consider this a harem. Like, those two are very much a pair. They become a pair very quickly on in the first episode, and they're very cute throughout, despite the fact that they're not really official until later on, but, like, you can tell that they're kind of who it is for each other, and it's very, very, very sweet. And, yeah, the romance, it's quite romantic, this one. Like, it's not...
It is, but also, like, it's very mature, too.
It is.
Like, a lot of the stuff that happens in this show... Like, if this happened in any other show, or quite frankly, if this shit happened in real life, like, whoever was in my shoes would have flipped their shit.
Yeah.
Like, it would have been bad.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But, like, she was very mature about handling everything, and, like, everything that went on. Like, it was...
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like how relationships should be. Like just talk about it and all this stuff. And it's just I don't know, like it's a phenomenal like relationship and dynamic between the two. Like
they
can't
don't
speak highly enough about that. Like the writers, 10 out of 10. Like great.
Yeah, it's genuinely a really good example of a healthy relationship, which is interesting because for like things that are targeted at teenagers, normally they are the very definition of a toxic relationship. I mean, just think of like the biggest romantic movies and things that have come out in that are targeted at teenagers. They're all toxic relationships. I mean, just look at Twilight, for instance. Like, how, like, that's not okay. Like, trying to commit suicide because your boyfriend left you? Like, no, not cool. Like, that's not healthy. You need to go get some professional help. But no, you're not going to get help. You're just going to cry until he comes back to you. Like, okay, anyways, besides the point. It's so bad. Like, telling teenagers that that's what's acceptable.
But yeah, I mean, to be fair, that trope has been around since Romeo and Juliet.
That's true. But Romeo and Juliet was kind of done from the perspective of Shakespeare being like, look how stupid this is. That's why it was so dramatic, because it was frickin' stupid.
Yeah, like it is satire is what a lot of that was. But
but Twilight was serious.
Like, it was real serious. Although I know nothing about it, I do understand the premise, and I'm like, yeah, that's big dumb. It
was so serious, you can tell by the fact that they put a blue filter over the whole movie to make it serious. Even inside, they're like in a school, and it's like still blue and dark and gloomy, despite the fact that there's like white, yellow lighting. Like, okay, cool. I'm not mad about it. It's fine.
Yeah, their VFX guy got paid a lot of money to do something real stupid. Anyway.
But yeah, one thing about episode 2 that I thought was super cute was just that, and it shows Mai's character very well. They're lying in bed next to each other, about to go to sleep, and he asks her basically how she's coping with all of this. And she just basically says, well, I'm not going to cry because what does crying do? It doesn't solve anything. And besides, I don't want you to see me cry. That's embarrassing. And it just kind of sums her up as a person, and as a character. And I thought that was a really good moment to put in there to kind of really define her from very early on as to what type of person she is in stressful situations. And this is an incredibly stressful situation. The entire world is literally forgetting her existence. And she may cease to exist completely. The only person who is aware of her that she currently knows of is lying right next to her and may forget her at any moment. And she still refuses to cry because she doesn't want him to see her cry. She doesn't want to show any kind of weakness. So it really is a very good couple of seconds that they included in there that really just does describe her as a person and really set you up to understand how her character works.
Agreed. And that's like it's kind of the thing I told Blue whenever we started watching this show, but it is a very smart show. Like, it's very intelligent with how it handles things and how it presents things. Like, this show talks about quantum physics, amongst other things, like Laplace's demon and Schrodinger's cat, like a lot of like really in-depth subjects if you take the time to look into it.
Yeah, and like quantum particle vibrations and thus sinking through contact. And yeah, no, it's there's a person specifically who I can think of that would very much enjoy this because of that section of like understanding each other via vibrating particles. Like, that sounds real weird, but like I have a friend that would be very, very interested in this. Yeah, it's an incredibly intelligent show, not just from the scientific perspective, which is broken down in a way to where it's very understandable. I'm not a sciencey person by any means, but
I'm not gonna lie, I failed most of the science classes I took.
Yeah, me too. So not a sciencey person, but they did explain it in a very understandable way, and in a very interesting way. Like, you pay attention to it, and even if you know only very, very basic science, you will still be able to understand this. Even if you don't entirely understand the concepts, you'll be able to understand the way that they're relating it to the story. And they did it very well. And then on a psychological perspective as well, it's also very interesting, but for a whole different kettle of fish.
Oh, yeah.
So then episode 3 is called The World Without You. And my first note here is just cringe. So much cringe.
So, what was cringe?
What was cringe? The giant love confession in front of the whole dang school.
You see, like, here's the thing, though. I didn't find that cringy because I told you about this, but I'm going to explain to the podcast. So, whenever the show initially came out in 2018, I watched it episode for episode until episode 6, which, watching it through this time, I kicked myself in the ass, and I even messaged Blue, and I was like, why the fuck did I stop watching this show? Like, I was so upset with myself over it. But, like, even the first time through watching it, or even the second time through watching it, even though I knew exactly what was coming, like, it's not cringy because it was necessary.
Yeah, agree.
So, like, I didn't find it cringe. And in fact, like, if I were in the shoes, like, if I was in Sakata's shoes, I would have done the same thing. Because of all the things, like, you could have done to try to reverse what was happening, that was it. Because they talk about how, like, you can't fight the atmosphere. And with my disappearing, like, they're just talking about, you know, you just got to go with it because it's the atmosphere. You can't change it. Like, there's nothing you can do. And so you have to do something, like, massively drastic to change it. But anyway, that's getting ahead of ourselves by about 16 to 17 minutes of an episode. So.
Well, basically, so the reason why Maya's disappearing is because when she left Stribbers and went to school, she joined halfway through the year because she was finishing up what she was working on and couldn't just, like, leave everything and just join at the beginning of the year with everyone else. So by the time she joined, everyone had already kind of formed their cliques, they'd formed their groups. And not only that, when she joined, she was this celebrity, you know? She had been in the public eye since she was 6 years old. Everyone already knew of her. And so she couldn't really be friends with the girls because they were kind of being all, like, snooty and jealous and everything towards her. And she couldn't be friends with the guys because then she would be labeled as that kind of girl, which is stupid, but, you know, that's kind of the way that teenagers work. So they explained that instead what she did was she just kept to herself and went to class every day, didn't talk to anyone, and left. And because of that, she just kind of faded into the background. She just kind of became, like, you know, that the one student that nobody ever talks to. You're kind of aware of their existence, but you don't interact with them. They're not part of any clubs. They don't have any friend groups. They're just the loner kid. But she wasn't enough of...
Essentially.
Right. Yes, Brad, you are a loner.
My life is sad anyway.
But she wasn't enough of a loner to where she stood out, because, like, for him, he was a loner, but he was a loner because of a negative rumor, so he was made aware of because, like, people were aware of his presence because they were scared of him. So they, like, he wasn't really, he didn't blend, you know? But she ended up getting so good at not having anyone pay attention to her that she ended up just becoming part of the atmosphere. So that's the reason why she supposedly started to disappear, was because she blended so well with everything else that people just forgot about her existence. She just became she just disappeared. But for some reason, everyone in the school still kind of remembered her until the day that they go back to school in episode 3, which is called The World Without You. I don't know if I said the name of it. So basically, they go back to the school after their trip outside of where they're in. I go back to school, and that day they ask everyone about her, and she doesn't exist anymore there. And so it's during midterm exams this time, and so Sakata ends up talking to
Rio.
To Futaba. What it was?
Rio Futaba.
Rio Futaba? Okay, yeah. I know names. I've only written down, like, one name for each, so I'm like, I don't know who. But Rio. Okay, so Sakata ends up talking to Rio, and she basically says to him, she's like the science girl. She's the one who comes up with all of the explanations for quantum physics, all that kind of stuff. And entanglement, that's it. Quantum entanglement, like the particles bumping into each other and then having a cause and effect. Anyways, she ends up saying that she thinks that when people go to sleep and their brain kind of resets and stores all of the information for that day, everyone's brain is taking her and putting it into the unnecessary category and thus forgetting it. And so then when they wake up in the morning, they don't remember her existence. And when he finds this out, he realizes that he can't go to sleep, or there's a good chance that he'll forget her too. So he does everything he can to stay awake. And he's going through his midterms, he's going through his exams, and he's like crashing. He's drinking so much energy drinks, like they're still having interaction with each other. His sister, he's brought my home a couple of times, and his sister doesn't remember her. Like everyone's kind of forgotten her. It's just him now that remembers her. Even Rio like doesn't remember her, just kind of like when he tells her the story and stuff, then she goes through and starts like explaining things, but like she doesn't remember who she is. And then he decides that he is going to write a note to himself basically being like, on May 6th, I met Buddy Girl Senpai. And that kind of takes you full circle to the beginning of the first episode. And then she comes over to tutor him for his exams. So basically what she says is, if you've been studying up this late, if you've been like cram studying this late, then you should have somebody to study with. So I'm going to come over and teach you. And she puts sleeping pills in his coffee because she's realized that he's staying awake, and she kind of puts two and two together. And then he falls asleep on the desk, and she's like, it's okay, thank you for trying so hard. And she genuinely at this point thinks that that's it, no one's going to remember her. She's going to fade it into being forgotten, like nobody's going to remember her. This is the last time anyone's going to ever hear from her or see her. And in the morning he's going to wake up and not remember her. And that's what happens. In the morning he wakes up and he doesn't remember her, and he goes to look at his notebook that's open on his desk, and he reads it, and that's where you officially get to the beginning of the first episode. And like in the beginning of the first episode, her name is kind of fuzzed out and you can't see anything. And so he goes to school, and when he's at school, the night before when they were studying, she makes up like stupid words to describe the kanji, because like they're studying modern Japanese, so they're like learning a kanji, what it means, and like coming up with sentences to describe what it means to try and like remember them. And then when he's taking his midterm for it, they come across the kanji that they were studying, which is something like protect, the kanji for, I can't remember, but it's something like protect. And when he comes across this kanji, he starts, like, plus with the reading of the notes, there are a couple of other little things that were triggering his memory as he was going, but he reads this kanji, and then he starts, like, getting flashbacks, and he can't see her face, and he's trying to remember, and it's just, like, all kinds of confusing, and he's sitting there, and then all of a sudden, ding, he puts it all together, remembers who it is, he gets up, bursts out of the classroom, claiming that he's got to go take a poop, and that's why he's leaving during a midterm, and he runs out onto the baseball field, and he screams out loud for all of the students to get his attention, and he says, "I love my," like really loud in front of the whole school. Then when he turns around, he can see her, and then they get in a lot of trouble at school.
And also, so during this like yelling confession thing and everything else, and like, so she's able to be seen by the rest of the school now. Mm-hmm. And so since she's been brought back to the forefront by everyone, she also tells everyone, like, hey, Sakata didn't actually send people to the mm-hmm. hospital. Like, that was just a rumor that was all made up. And so everybody's opinion of him start to change mm-hmm. as well mm-hmm. at this point.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then, so another thing, I want to talk about this one. So whenever she drugs him and he goes to sleep, if this had been any other anime, again, because he had that journal that he had written out and open on his desk.
Mm-hmm.
This has been any other anime, like, Mai would have erased that shit.
Yeah.
But she didn't. So I was like, big brain.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know why I had to talk about that, but it's just one of those
Yeah.
things to where if it had been like any other thing, because like she was just ready to say goodbye, like she knew it was going to happen, and she even told him like as he was falling asleep, because even after he noticed that a sleeping pill had been put in his drink, like he was fighting it as hard as he could, but she's like, no,
Mm-hmm.
shh, it's okay,
Mm-hmm.
like you did your best, and so yeah, I don't know, like it's just like that's a really cool kind of thing because she's still like. She's
Had
giving
that
up on
hope.
it, but she has hope. And then,
Yeah.
like, before that class, like, during their break for the modern Japanese midterm, Futaba had stopped him before class and had left,
That was the
because
other thing I was forgetting.
Mai had left a note in her textbook. It didn't have a name on it, but, I mean, you know it's Mai. And all it said was, if you love something enough, then you have the ability to change it by making everyone know.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's whenever all that happened. But one thing I'll notice, and you kind of really start, I don't know if you picked up on it or not, but so Crunchyroll also but subtitled accents in this show.
Yeah.
And it kind of becomes apparent in this episode, but like, especially when he's running another room, like, I gotta take a dump. But also, like, starting in episode 4 and on, whenever you meet Tomoe, then, or, what was it, Koga, I think?
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, so whenever you meet her, like, because she's not from the area that they're in, so, like, they're constantly, like, subbing her accent. And it's very, like, Southern American, like, kind of twang to it, I guess. Like, it's a lot of stuff that I say. But it's to the point to where it also starts to rub off on the main character as well. Like, like he picks up some of those mannerisms, and I'm just like, that's great. That's awesome. Like, I don't think any other show would have done something like that. So that was a really cool touch. I don't know if that was intentional or not.
But yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, like it's a really cool thing. Anyway, episode 4.
Yeah, well, one thing, the reason why I found it cringe for myself is personally because public declares of affection, anything where it's like big and visible, any kind of like giant emotional happening is very cringe to me. I don't know, I think it might be a cultural thing. Because, like, you know, that, like, stiff upper lip and all that, that's, like, classically British. It is very true in specific areas in Britain and for specific families to not show emotion the same way that North Americans tend to. It's kind of like in Japan as well, like, older Japanese families have that kind of trope of you don't show emotion, you don't show when you're feeling emotion.
I mean, it's even that way in, like, Japanese culture as well, of, like, they don't, like, PDA is frowned upon in public. So, well, I mean, that's part of public, or PDA, anyway. Like that.
Yeah. PDA in public? What? Public declares of affection in public?
Who would have thought? But,
right?
yeah, like, even hand-holding and stuff, from my understanding, like, is frowned upon. So, yeah, so I can understand, but like, I didn't find it cringy just because, and I'm one of those people to where if I see, like, PDA in person, I'm just like, go find a room somewhere.
Go find a room. Yeah, no, I definitely did find it cringe, and I did skip a little bit, but like...
You know what?
Just a tad.
You are no longer Kami-sama, you are Skip-chan. That is your nickname from now on. If I have the power to change it in your Discord and mine to Skip-chan, I'm going to do it.
You know what? It's very fitting because, yeah, I did hit that arrow key a couple of times just to, like, go, like, 20 seconds ahead. Because, yeah, any kind of public declaration of affection or, yeah, anything like that. Even though I knew there was a good cause, even though I knew that it was necessary, even though I had all this background information, still cringe. Can't handle it. Episode 4 is There Is No Tomorrow for a Rascal. And my first note on here is just, ugh, he's so dumb. I don't know why I wrote that, though. We'll find out.
Yeah, like, I'm honestly curious as to why you wrote that, because I was thinking, like, because he figures it out, like, on day 2. Like, he pieces it together.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it was probably... Oh, I know why I wrote it. Okay, we'll get into this. Okay.
Okay.
Butt Kick Girl and Sakta are stuck in a Groundhog-style loop. Okay, so basically, what... Was it the beginning of episode 4, or was it some point... I think it was at some point in episode 3.
Late, like, episode 3, so...
Yeah, there's a scene where Butt Kick Girl is Koga, who is the country girl who we were just talking about. He is like rushing to get to a date, and he's going to be late for the date with Mai. But he's late because of Koga. But he runs into a girl who's crying because she's lost her mom. And he gets his ass kicked by Koga, who comes across the circumstance of him in a park with a little girl and thinks, predator! So runs over and kicks his butt and sends him flying. And then once the situation is explained as to what was actually going on, her way of apologizing is saying, oh, well then you can kick my butt. And she doesn't let him say no. He's okay with not doing that, but she doesn't let him say no. So he ends up kicking her butt too. And yeah, that's like their interaction. They end up going to the police station because a police officer caught them like being weirdos. And yeah, they end up going to the police station. He ends up being late for his date. And that's kind of the first interaction that you get with her. So basically, Koga and Sakata are stuck in a Groundhog-style loop. So it's Friday. And the reason why, like, he's aware that it's a Groundhog-style loop initially is because Japan won the football. And so he's like, oh, cool, Japan won the football. And then he goes to school. And one part here that threw me off is that they go to school on a Saturday. Huh?
But I think, like, that's a common thing.
Yeah.
And, like, in anime, so I almost wonder if it's that way in their culture, too. Like, I think they go to school for half days, but I think it's also a Friday whenever all this is taking place.
Yeah, it's a Friday where all this takes place, but then he's waiting for Saturday, and then he gets up and gets his school uniform on the Saturday, and that threw me for a loop. I was like, huh, okay.
But yeah, I think it's just like a half day or something like that.
I think,
at least from all the anime I've watched. That could be
as
wrong.
As far as I'm aware, it is too. But
animes that it's in, like, you would think that would have to be commonplace.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, that is the case. It just still threw me for a loop as to someone who's never gone to school on a Saturday. It was just like, oh, that's weird, and it pulled me out of the anime for a second. So just to note, they go to school on a Saturday, because I was like, where? So basically, he goes to school
with Brad and Blue. Anyway,
yeah, right. He goes to school. He goes for the entire day, and then he gets up the next day. What he believes is the next day. Gets ready for school, and then he goes out to the living room, and he sees that the same news is on the TV. And he just goes, oh, well, why is that news on the TV? Didn't we see this yesterday? And his sister, who's watching the news, is basically just like, I didn't see it yesterday. What are you going on about? I haven't seen this news yet. Didn't this just happen last night? Didn't they just win the football, like, overnight? Because they were playing internationally. So, yeah, it's morning for them, but they won during the night.
Also, I do have a point to make about, like, up to this point. And it's commonplace, like, throughout the rest of the anime as well. But, like, I think it was around this point that I really started to notice it. But his sister, Kaide, like, whenever she speaks about herself in the third person.
Yes.
Like, she refers to herself, like, anytime she's supposed to say I or me, she says, Kaide-san.
Yeah.
And the fact that there's a son on there, too, like, also, like, I didn't notice the first time watching through, but this time, and especially around this point, is whenever I caught the son on the end of it, and I was like,
that's sad. It's sad for reasons to be explained later.
Also, excuse the really loud fucking motorcycle. Anyway.
Love that. But yeah, so basically he goes through the same day again. He's kind of like weirded out, and he goes and talks to Rio, who's the sciencey girl, about it. Basically, whenever anything happens, he goes and talks to her because she kind of is able to explain it in a way that it makes sense to him. and is based in science. And she's a very skeptical person throughout this whole thing. Like, she up until she experiences things herself, she is incredibly skeptical of this whole thing even being a thing. And even when she goes through it, she is still incredibly skeptical, which I thought was a really good consistency with her character, because she is supposedly like this science-based character. So it makes sense. So when she when he asks her about what's going on, she says, well, there should be someone who is causing this Groundhog style effect. If you haven't seen the movie Groundhog Day, which is what I'm referring to, it's just basically where the same day happens over and over and over again. And it's now become like a thing to just say Groundhog Day whenever there's a plot of a day having
like a time loop or something. Because I know we discussed it with ReZero as well, with like the resets and having to relive the same days over and over again. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's kind of what's happening here.
Yeah. So then his main concern is trying to find whoever it is who's kind of the catalyst of all of this, and why they are resetting the day, if they're doing it intentionally, if they're not, like what's going on. And that's when he finds Kolga again. And he realizes that she is the catalyst because he bumps into her in a classroom. He's going to go have lunch with Mai. He has his lunch with Mai every day. And he's going to go to that lunch. And when he goes to that lunch, he sees her under the like teacher's stand podium thing. And she pulls him under too, basically being like, hide. And when he asks why, it's because this basketball guy, his senpai, who's a basketball player, asked her out in the previous days. And she doesn't want to be asked out by him because her friend likes him. And if he asks her out, then it might cause a rift between her and her friend of just basically being like, oh, well, how could you lead him on when you knew that I liked him? You obviously, like, you're two-timing, backstabbing kind of person. And she was really concerned about that. So she just wanted to avoid the circumstance. So then as they are like having that kind of conversation, then he leaves. Like, he was like peering into the classroom and he couldn't see her, so he left. And then Mai walks into the classroom because she's about to have lunch with him, with Sakuta, and then they end up tripping out over or like knocking the podium over and end up being in a really precarious circumstance of looking like they were getting all up to the kind of naughty business in the middle of a classroom floor. I just got shaggy in my head, just being like, banging in the classroom floor. It wasn't me.
I will never be able to rewatch this anime the same again.
Oh god, I'm sorry, that was real bad. They are minors, brain. Get out of the gutter. Oh god,
please go into jail, guys. Podcast is canceled. No. I'm sorry.
Oh no. God, jeez. So he ends up basically they end up going out, like having a fake relationship, so that, because he's like, oh, okay, well, this is okay because we're going to reset tomorrow, Mai's going to love me again and it's fine, and then he wakes up the next day and it's Saturday, so yeah, that didn't work, and he's now panicking because Mai walked out of the classroom real angry, because in the previous days, because like by this point Friday has happened like 4 times or whatever. In the previous days, he'd asked her out over lunch and she had said yes. So like they were about to become official. And then on this day, that doesn't happen. And he's like, it's okay because it'll reset and then tomorrow will be fine. But it didn't reset. Now he's in trouble. So then Kolga ends up asking him basically to be in a fake relationship with him because then they can, then she can, avoid the circumstance of the basketball player and stuff. Mai is displeased, and he's an ass. And the reason why I put, ugh, he's so dumb, which I now remember, is because Mai basically says, outside of, like, they just go to the, like, 7-Eleven, they go to the store. And when they're outside of the store, she basically says, oh, well, I hope, because there's no word for you well, there is a word for you in Japanese, but it's not used. Like, you don't have a subject quite often. Like, if you know what subject you're talking about, they don't include the subject in the sentence structure. So basically, the way that she said it was just, don't fall in love. Or, like, I hope don't fall in love. Or, like, hope don't fall in love, kind of. Which for us doesn't make any sense. But in that context, basically means, I don't know how they did it in the subtitles, I can't really remember. But
I think they put the U in there.
Yeah, I think they did. Yeah, I hope you don't fall in love. And Sakata basically took that as her saying to him, don't fall in love with her. But what she meant was, she's gonna fall in love with you while you're doing this. You're aware of that, right? Like I know that you're, because then he's like, oh, I'm not, you're the only one for me. And she's like, oh, that's not what I meant. And he's like, yeah, whatever.
Which, on that note, that is some brilliant fucking foreshadowing.
Yeah. And she's like, okay, well, you don't get it, you big stupid, basically. And she doesn't explain it. She doesn't elaborate it. And so that's why I put, ugh, he's so dumb, because I was like, I can see where this is going, and you're going to end up hurting some people there. Why did you agree to it? Sakata, like, idiot. Because, like, yeah, because at this point with Koga, you can definitely see that there is a level of admiration there. Like, she is at this point getting friendly with him, and you can see that up into this point. So, like, in episode 4, it's not like a surprise when later on when she does, like, fall in love with him, because you can see her affection building for him from the first time that they meet all the way through. And it's a very, very good relationship dynamic in the sense that they really arced it well. You know, they started off with her not knowing him at all, and you can see the progression. Like, she's not all over him, like, as soon as she meets him, you know? Like in some animes where it's like, oh my god, love at first sight. It's not like that. It is very much of a friendship building, admiration increasing. He protected her. He gives her advice. Their relationship dynamic increases, and he feels quite, like, brotherly, sisterly towards her, but you can see how she doesn't feel that way towards him. I don't know, I thought it was well done. And so basically, yeah, they end up having a fake relationship together, and that's the kind of the end of episode 4. Anything you wanted to?
I mean, not really. One thing I will say, though, is, again, this is another one of those situations of, like, you see how, like, really chill and how, like, again, like, mature Mai can be, because she's like, that's cool. Like, you're, like, looking after her, and I know, like, I know you.
Yeah, she trusts him completely.
And you're just trying to help, yeah. But, again, like, that whole thing of, like, you know, I hope you don't fall in love, like, at that point, I was just like, ooh. And again, this goes back to the whole, like, after episode 5, like, I'm really going to be kicking myself in the ass of episode 6 of, like, damn it.
Yeah. One thing I will also say about Sakura, because, like, we talked about how Mai's really, like, grown up. He is incredibly grown up as well, and that's why I think they're a very, very good pair. Because although sometimes he's a little bit dense when it comes to knowing other people's emotions, he picks up on other stuff very, very quickly, and he's incredibly responsible. Like, when you figure out all that he does, throughout his, like, what he does on a day-to-day basis later on, you become very, like, protective of him as a main character because of the circumstances that he's been dealt. Yeah, he's an incredibly mature young person who's experienced a lot and has some kind of emotional detachment. And you find out why he has an emotional detachment. It's not in all areas. It's specifically surrounding adolescent syndrome that he does have this emotional detachment and takes everything very, like, not at face value, but he's very accepting. It's just like, okay, well, this is the circumstances. This is the way that it is. Okay, I accept it. Let's deal with it. Like, he doesn't experience that, like, emotional trauma first. It's just... he skips the denial stage and goes straight into, like, okay, well, let's do something. And you find out why later. But, like, with his affection and romance and his love for his sister and stuff. He's not emotionally detached at all, but you can see how in circumstances with adolescent syndrome, he is more emotionally detached.
Agreed.
So episode 5 is All the Lies I Have for You, and I just put so much happens. So basically, they go on a fake date. That's Koga and Sakuta. They go on a fake date. I just put basketball douche. I don't know his real name. But like the guy that was originally trying to ask out Koga, who her friend has a crush on.
It's like, my off.
Something like that. He tries to spread rumors about her and basically saying that she's real easy. So how this works with Mai is that because she's gone back to the entertainment industry, she's away a lot for work. Basically what they say is that he got denied, and when he got denied after his giant love confession in front of the whole school, he is basically rebounding with Koga. And so that the rest of the school doesn't think that he's like two-timing, they think that he's only dating Koga and that Mai denied him. So then basketball douche is basically just like, oh, well, she must be real easy because I saw them together in a classroom doing all kinds of whatnot. Despite the fact that he knows that's not the circumstance. He knows that it was a complete accident that all happened. And yet that's what he, like, spread out. And he started spreading other kinds of stuff out as well. She ends up kind of, like, her relationship with her friends kind of goes downhill. Like, she is having a hard time because of him. And then when they are going on this date, they're going to go to the aquarium and stuff. They get onto the train platform and there's like a bunch of other students there, and there's also a basketball douche who decides it's a fantastic time to pick a fight. So he goes up to Sakuta and he's like, hey, what's it like being with a girl that's so easy like me? And he starts like poking at Koga too. And Toga. It's like with you and Sake. Oh my god, we're great with names. Can you tell? And so Koga is like really upset, and she's getting down on herself because he's being a real ass. He's a big old dude as well, like athlete. And Sakuta's just basically like, okay, you want to fight? Let's fight. And he's like goes to like punch him, and the other guy's like getting ready to block, and he just kicks him in the shin. And then when he falls down, he then kicks him in the face, and then he's like, and you might want to wash your face because I stepped in poo yesterday. And
then the whole, like, as they're about to run away, he's like, oh, by the way, I'm a virgin.
I'm a virgin.
And then they just take off running. Like, Sakuta grabs Koga by the wrist and just takes off out of the train station. And I lost it at that funny point. Like, whenever he's like, I'm a virgin, like, I busted out laughing. It was like 2 a.m., but I was dying. It's so good. And then another part before this, so while they're on their date, so Koga can make it seem official because Koga's personality or her like outlook on life is to be popular, you gotta stay like in touch all the time with your friends. So there's like a group message and she's losing sleep because they're up to like 3 a.m. and she's like watching videos to make sure that she stays in the now and like up to date with the memes and everything. And so where was I going with that?
On the date.
My brain just died. Oh yeah, so on the date, she's like, okay, I need to take a picture of us together to make it look real. And so she takes a selfie with him, and she's like, oh, Senpai. Because at this point, she's still referring to him as Senpai, because he's a year older than her. He's like, oh, Senpai, your eyes look really dead. And he's like, oh, they're like that all the time.
Yeah.
I lost it. It was
basically,
great.
like, she's that annoying girl that is constantly on her phone no matter what. Like, you're having a conversation with her and she's on her phone, you know? Because she has to be kept in the loop. And that's another reason why it was so impactful for her to be asked out by her best friend's crush. Because she was like, they're gonna hate me, they're gonna not want to be, like, friends with me, they're gonna, not want to, like, be around me anymore. And while they're on their date, he's basically talking to her and he's just like, well, why? Like, why are you so, like, hung up on this idea that they're not going to be friends with you anymore. And she then explains that she was, born and raised outside of where they are now, and she was born and raised in the country. And that she worked so hard to get rid of her accent. She researched fashion styles, changed all of her clothing. She did everything that she could so that when she moved, she cut her hair colored her hair and dyed her hair for the first time. She started getting her nails done, all this kind of stuff. Put on makeup for the first time so that she could blend in with the girls from the city. And she tries to completely eliminate who she was in the countryside. So then episode 6 is This World You Chose. And the day starts repeating itself again. And this is a day, the first day of the summer holidays, I think. And when it starts repeating, they're going on their fake couple date, and it's supposed to be the day where they split up. So Koga had kind of planned that they would go through the date, they would go to the beach, they'd have a really fun time together, and then on the way home she's going to realize that he's supposedly still in love with Mai, and because of that she slaps him and breaks up with him, and they're done. And that's and then it'll fizzle out over summer, and then nobody's going to question it when they all come back for the autumn term. But at the end of the day, they have a really heartwarming, sweet moment of being okay, well, this is where it ends. Thank you for everything. I'm sorry I was such a pain. Let's always be friends. And then he wakes up the next morning and it's still, it's not the first day of summer. Sorry, it's the ending the ending ceremony day, a semester end ceremony. So they do have to go to school in the morning. And that's how he knows that it's not just another day of summer, because his sister's hey, don't you have the ceremony to go to? Don't you need to be going there? And then they go to the beach afterwards. And it starts repeating. But she isn't admitting that it's repeating. She's going through and acting like everything is completely normal. And that he is the only one that's going through the days repeating again. And it's because she has completely fallen head over heels in love with him, and ending it at the end of the day is causing so much turmoil for her that she's not wanting the day to end. She wants to just live in that day forever so that she can eventually make him fall in love with her after 1,000 days, 100,000 days, 1 billion days, I think they were talking about, going over it.
And I don't know if you caught it, but on the second day, while he's I wonder what's going on, she was repeating everything,
yes,
the exact same, but it was a little bit hesitant to where it's she had to think about everything that she did. I didn't know if you had caught on to it,
yeah,
but I noticed it immediately, and I was just you're trying to be sneaky. I see what you do.
Yeah. Well, they go through the entire day with her pretending that she is experiencing it for the first time, and she's having to mimic exactly what supposedly happened previously, and so she's having to consciously think back, and it is shown, and it's very good. So basically he then goes and talks to Rio and is just hey, is it possible that I'm the only one who's repeating? And she's no, she's lying, it's not possible. So then he basically just goes through the day with her a couple of times, and then eventually he starts spotting things changing. During the ceremony, she never looked back to him, but then in one of them she does look back, and that's different. And then one day he's I don't want to go to the beach. This is the 4th day for me, so come with me to I don't know where they go, shopping center, just a farmer's market.
Yeah, they were supposed to go on a date somewhere originally, but then they had to cancel because of something. And so it was the 4th time that the day repeated, and he was just you know what? We're going to go somewhere different. We're going to go where we were initially supposed to go. And then while they're there, they're still having a great time. He's still, he hasn't said anything to her about it, but he mentions it to her again, and he's just so, are the days repeating? And she's no, not at all. This is the first time we've done this. And then he calls her on her bullshit.
Yeah.
Just you're lying to me. And he's I realize how I let on, but he's I know what's going on. He's I know you're making the days repeat.
Yeah.
And so why? And that's whenever Blue said, she asked him, she's so no matter how many times we repeat the day, you still love Mai, don't you? And he's yes.
Yeah.
And like she breaks down and she's like, I love you, but I hate you.
Yeah. Yeah. And then everything goes back to the very first day. So they go to sleep that night and everything goes back to the very first day. So this is like 3 weeks beforehand, the day of like the classroom.
June 27th.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the day where like Japan won the
football,
soccer
yeah.
game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It goes
like,
all the way back
all
then.
of that.
Mm-hmm.
And like he goes through a little inner monologue of like, you know, everything that happened, like initially in the first one did happen, like he asked Mai out again and all that,
Mm-hmm.
and it goes through all that. But one thing that changed this time was Mai actually kissed Sakata on the cheek.
He was so cute.
It was a really sweet moment. Like
Yes.
it was so cute.
Yeah. And another thing
And
that changed
then
this time is
big
that
dun 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 moment.
yeah, she grows up. She deals with basketball douche herself. She's just like, nah fam, I ain't going out with you, deal with it. Suck my ass. And then on their way home, Mai and Sakura run into his first love. So throughout the anime, he was always being teased about the fact that he supposedly had this first love called Shoko, who had helped him out throughout like the trauma of everything, of how he got his scars, basically. And so he's always like teased, like, oh, well, she disappeared from existence. Like, you're never going to find her again. Like, sucks for you. And then when he gets together with Mai, everyone's like, oh, you finally got over that. And then they're walking home and it's raining and there's a kitten in a box that's obviously been abandoned. And they go and there's a little girl who's crouching over the kitten in the box. And he's like, oh, it's okay, I'll take the kitten home and then you can come and visit it. And because she's like, oh, I want to raise it myself, but obviously she's a kid, she needs to get her parents' permission, all that kind of stuff, and the cat's still there just in the box. So he's like, I'll take it home, we've got a cat, I'll take it home, wash it up, feed it, everything like that, you can come get it whenever you're available. And then she looks up at him and it is his first love. It is Shoko, but she's like a 7th grader. She's like real young.
Dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun. And that's the end of the episode. Episode 7 is Adolescence Paradox. So basically, there are 2 science girls. They are 2 Rios. That's like this is the next adolescent syndrome is that there's 2 of her. So she is crushing big time on Sakata's best friend, who is like the only guy who kind of like kept around him when he was supposedly a big bully, beats up people in the hospital kind of situation. But he has a girlfriend. He's had a girlfriend for a while. And she just kind of like represses her feelings. She's just like, it's cool. I'll just do all my sciencey stuff and ignore the fact that he has a girlfriend. But like every time they interact with each other, like she's getting all flustered and stuff, and it's very sweet. But basically when Sakata and Mai are like going out on dates and interacting with each other, they run into one Rio, and she's like going into an internet cafe, like a manga cafe, where you can like stay overnight. They're like you rent a booth for a period of time, and the booths have like a bed in, they have like a computer in, and if it's like a manga cafe, then they have like a room, like a library room. You can go and collect a few books, then go back in and to your private booth, and then read as many as you want, and then you can like order room service or whatever you want, and you can rent them for like 24 hours, like you can rent them for like 5 hours. So it's basically like a temporary stop-off point for people if they want to like have some alone time. Like if you're in a shared house or something and you want some alone time, you can go to a manga cafe. And so basically she's...
States, please. And thanks.
Can we get them in the States, please? Thank you. Yes. And yeah, so she goes there and they're all like, what's going on with that? Why are you there? And when she's there, they call her on her phone, but the Rio in front of them doesn't pick up, but yet she's on the other line of the phone, which is real weird.
Dun,
And
dun,
then
dun.
dun dun dun, and then yeah, they end up figuring out that there's two of her. One of them is staying in her house, and then the other one, who is staying in the manga cafe, ends up going back to Sakusa's house and staying there while she can't go back home. And the one that goes back home has like put her hair up in a ponytail. She's taken off her glasses, put contact lenses in. Basically, she did the, oh, if I take my hair down and I take off my glasses, then I'm all sexy. But like kind of in reverse because she put her hair up. You know?
Oh, yeah.
But she's like the side of her that is like much more outgoing, bubbly, friendly. And the one that is at Sakusa's house is much more science, introverted, like that kind of based mindset. So they did kind of split into two different sides of her personality. And so he's basically spending the whole episode having conversations between the two of them and trying to figure out why this happened. Because obviously at this point he knows that there's like kind of an emotional catalyst that causes adolescent syndrome to happen. So he's trying to figure out what caused this to happen, and they're both kind of denying it. Or, well, one of them's not denying it, but she's saying the other one needs to explain it, and the other one's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then they end up figuring out that she was taking kind of smexy pictures on her phone and posting them onto like a Instagram type account thing, but like none of her face was in it. It's just like of her body and stuff.
Mm.
And it was because it was she was doing it because of her insecurities. Originally, she started doing it just to have a kind of objective photograph of herself, to get an objective opinion on what she looks like physically, because she went through the trauma of developing faster than all of her other students, and then all of a sudden having all of this attention on her that she wasn't used to, because all of her other female students weren't as physically developed as she was. And as someone who was previously not really the forefront of attention, it was very shocking and disturbing for her to go through. And so at that point, she then made this account to get this objective opinion of her physical body. And that's caused some, like, turmoil for her, some trauma. Yeah, that's kind of like the premise of the thing. She's, like, feeling really alone. And, yeah.
And yeah, that's pretty much, like, that's as good of a summary as I can give of that episode.
Yeah.
Because that was, like, it was definitely a really odd episode, but also a lot of what was going on is, like, throughout it, you would see Sakuta and Kaide at home, and Shoko was coming over a lot. Young Shoko.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of a thought to keep in the back of your head as the show progresses as well.
Yeah, she's coming over to take care of the cat. And then episode 8 is Wash It All Away on a Stormy Night. And it's about adorable firework friendships, and it's so cute. It's
fireworks.
It's such a Hanabi. It's such a sweet episode. So basically, she's experiencing all of this turmoil, and he's basically helping her out through it, trying to understand why she was going through what she was going through, and and try and help her merge with each other. And then the hair down version of Rio, the nerdier, more introverted version. First of all, the hair up version goes out and hangs out with the two boys, and they have like a really sweet moment on the beach of them all being like friends together and lighting fireworks and bonding. And she takes a picture of the three of them and sets it as her phone background. And then he goes home and then interacts with the other Rio who's at home, and basically she gets the wrong end of the stick. She thinks that instead of them having a bonding time, it was basically them kind of like replacing her with the other one, and she's like, okay, well, obviously you're better off without me, so I can just like leave. And so she when he's like in the bath or something, I don't know, he's distracted, she leaves, and it's like the middle of tsunami season, and she to the high school, and he runs to go find her. And like, well, he gets on his bike and like cycles through like rainy, typhoon, like crazy storm season to go and find her. And basically just like gives her a hug, and it's like, we're friends, except he's not emotional like that, so he doesn't give her a hug, but he gives her a verbal hug, basically, of being like, what are you doing, you idiot? Like, we're friends. You're important. And once she is just kind of like, he tries to invite her to go out to the festival, because they had like beach fun time fireworks, but like there's a proper legit like festival going on, and he invites her to go to the festival. And then after she accepts the invite, he turns around and collapses, because he was out in the rain, and if you're in anime and you go out in the rain, you're gonna get sick. That's how that works. And then he wakes up in the hospital, and when he's in the hospital, he's talking to her and basically being like, what you doing, dude? Like, we're friends. Go confront your other one and tell her that you want to go to the fireworks festival. Can you tell that I'm going into great detail here? So then she kind of accepts their friendship. She's figuring it all out. She's very emotionally confused. She still loves the best friend, and she's kind of all over the place, but she decides to stick up for herself and say that she wants to go to the festival. So she goes and gives her other half a call. And when she goes and gives her other half a call, poof, she no longer exists. And then he goes and picks up the payphone, and on the other end of the payphone is her, all back together again. And then the three of them end up going to the firework festival together, and she admits her love for, well, it's implied. You don't hear it, but yeah, it's implied that she admits her love for the friend, and he says, I've got a girlfriend. She's like, I know, you idiot. I just had to tell you. You better treat her well. And then she sheds a single tear, and cute friendship moments happen.
So cute.
So cute.
But one thing that I'll mention about this episode too is that so the entire time that this is going on, like, they believe the Futaba that is staying at Sakuta's house is the real one. Like, they kind of can't, like, piece together, because the whole time they're trying to figure out which one's the real one and which one is split because of the personality differences and everything.
Yeah.
And so, like, they're going through it the entire time, but the split is the one that initially had the phone, or who we thought was the split. Mm-hmm. So, whenever they have that moment of Sakuta's collapsed and is in the hospital, and he's talking to Futaba out in the waiting room, because Mai was actually in the examination room.
Yeah.
Whenever he woke up, she's like, of course, like, you're my boyfriend. I'm going to be here for you. But then he immediately just runs off after Futaba.
Yeah.
Because that's more pressing at the time. But so the entire time they're talking, she's just like, I don't know what I need to do. And he's like, well, there's someone that you need to call and ask. But she's like, I really want to go, but I don't think I can, because it wasn't me that made the plan. And so he's just like, well, there's someone you need to call. And I thought that she was going to call Yuma, or Basketball Dude, whatever. Like, that's who I thought that she was going to call. But nope.
Not Basketball Douche, the friend.
Yeah, like friend.
Yeah.
Not Basketball Douche by any means.
They play on the same team.
Yeah.
It's confusing.
But, so, like, I thought that's who she was calling. And then whenever he picks up the phone, and it's them together, and apparently, like, their memories combine at the same thing. So he's like, oh, y'all are back together.
Yeah.
But, so I thought that was interesting on whole.
I did too. I thought that she was...
us.
Yeah, I thought that she wasn't the split. I thought she was the original. But it was very interesting that she was actually the split.
Yeah, like, it is a really nice situation, because, like, you see her talking, and then it cuts back to Sakuta for a second, and then you just hear the phone drop.
Yeah.
Like, damn!
Yeah. That was the first time, I think, where... there are a couple of times in this anime where things get a bit eerie, but there's one in specific, which is the sound effect moment that Brad still hasn't clicked on yet, that is incredibly eerie. All of the comments said the same thing, that it was like, oh my god. But that was one moment that was like, oh, this could have been a horror anime if they wanted to. They could have made it horror because of what happens. Like,
it has its little like thriller moments.
It definitely does. It wouldn't have been difficult to have just kind of,
like taking
made
a
it a
turn
lot
and
scarier.
just went down like a totally different avenue. And you know what? I
Yeah.
would have been okay with that.
I would have too. It would have been a very interesting concept. Actually, I think that would be a very interesting thing to see, is to give this anime to another studio and say, take this, make it horror, and just see the flip side of the coin. I think that would be very interesting. I would be down to see that.
Give it to Juji Ito. I want to see this
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. So in episode 9 is called Sister Panic. My sister shows up and they have switched bodies. So Sakata basically goes to go meet his girlfriend, but when he gets there, she don't know who he is. And he's like, what? Who? What? And she's like, my sister would never date a loser like you. And then my sister's body walks around the corner. Nodoka walks around the corner and she's like, actually, that is my boyfriend. And then he's heckin' confused because he's like, a what?
And then she
like,
steps on his foot and it like,
yes.
He's like, yep, that's my.
That's my girl. That's my girl. So basically, Nodoka is Mai's half-sister. Different mothers, same dad. And she's an idol. She's in a girl band, but like kind of newly debuted, so they don't have like a massive following or whatever. And she does not like her older sister because she, like, Mai is like been in the industry for a very long time, and Nodoka hasn't. Obviously, she's only just debuted, so she's not been in the industry for a very long time. And Mai's also just naturally very, very talented at what she does. There's a reason why she's been so successful in the show business industry, is because she gets the job done very, very quickly. She's known to get through takes, like, first try. She's very efficient on set. Like, she just is very, very good at what she does. And that's put a lot of pressure on her half-sister, who didn't even really know that they were siblings until she was in like elementary or something. Like, they were quite old when when they met for the first time, because Mai's dad ditched, got remarried, and then met, and then had Nodoka, and then they like first interacted when Nodoka was like 6 or 7, you know? And so basically they end up having a big fight in the park, and just basically open it all out to each other, just saying, it sucks being under your shadow. And then Mai basically being saying, you stole my dad. Like, you think that I didn't want this either. Like, you can't blame me for that. Like, this is a situation that you can't blame me for, and yet you're blaming me for it. And they have like a huge fight. And then, yeah, because they've switched bodies, they had to switch schedules as well. So Nodoka is in Mai's body, so she's doing all of these commercial shoots and drama series, like she's acting, which she's not at all used to. She's used to dance practice and singing. But then Mai, who's in Nodoka's body, is in like the dance practices, singing practices and stuff, and she's doing well. She's doing what she does. She's naturally very gifted. And so the pressure is just increasing and increasing and increasing on Nodoka, because she's now seeing her sister kind of do well at what she thought was kind of her area of expertise. And then when Nodoka goes to a photo shoot, Nodoka in Mai's body goes to a commercial shoot, she ends up collapsing from having a panic attack. And when Sakata goes and tells Mai in Nodoka's body about it, she's surprised. She genuinely thought they might take a few takes for her sister to get it, but she didn't think that her sister was going to completely collapse. So it shows that she definitely had some kind of level of faith and like trust that her sister could get the job done. But turns out that she actually didn't. She panicked. And then at the end of the episode, Mai basically just says, hey, don't open the cabinet. Whatever you do, like, don't go to my house and open the cabinet, because Mai and Nodoka's body is staying at Sakata's house because they're having a big argument and they're not living together anymore. I think that's pretty much everything.
Yeah. That covers everything.
So in episode 10, Complex Congratulations. Sakata's background kind of gets revealed. he gets a phone call from his dad, but he's out of the house when he gets it, so Mai answers it. And yeah, they end up like talking about his mom, and how his mom ended up collapsing after the adolescent syndrome that happened to his younger sister, Kyode, and because of that, his mom ended up getting her own mental health disorder issue thing. And so his dad had to leave the house. Well, he didn't have to. He chose to leave the house to go take care of their mom. And so he has been raising his little sister completely on his own afterwards. And his dad's a nice guy, but like, dude, I don't agree with that whatsoever. What heckin' decision did you make to leave your son to take care of your daughter under those circumstances when he just got released from the hospital himself, but you're gonna go take care of your wife, so you just abandon your 2 kids? Like, not cool, dude. Not cool.
Yeah, like, not cool at all. But, again, goes back to the regular anime trope of dads aren't around.
Dads aren't around. No parents.
They're either away on business or away doing something.
Yeah, we don't have parents. And if we do have parents, it's a mom, and she takes care of all of the community kids. Like, that's it. It's like one mom for everyone or no parents.
Oh, yeah, moms in anime are best moms.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Most of the time. So then Naraka, Mai, ends up having a performance, she's an idol, she has to go to a performance, and at the performance she ends up doing really, really well, to the point where the lead singer drops the microphone, stumbles and drops the microphone, and she grabs it and just smoothly takes over like nothing happened. And then at the end of the show, it is announced who the next featured singer is going to be on the next single, and it is Naraka, or Mai in Naraka's body. And after the show, with like the fan meet and greet that happens, her mom goes up to her and starts like hugging her and saying, "Oh, you did such a fantastic job. I'm so proud of you," which is the first time that Naraka's like ever heard it, but she's hearing it from Mai's body, like standing back, watching it happen to her older sister in her body. And she's like, "See, even like it's my sister that needed to be there, that got the congratulations from my mom. Like even then it wasn't even me. Like it has to be her. She's so good at everything that like I can't ever live up to her." Like, and she's basically saying that because of the past few days with their body switch, her sister took all of the credit, and it was clearly her sister that, because of her sister's work, that she got the feature, because of her sister that she got the congratulations from her mom, and she's completely dismissing all of the hard work that she had put in the months prior, and just sees it as her sister accomplishing all of that without any of her foundation that she'd already laid for that, you know? And then, when they go back to the house, she ends up having a real big breakdown, just being like, "I feel completely unworthy, and this is horrible." And the 2 sisters end up having a really sweet bonding moment after Sakata reveals that Mai kept all of the letters that her sister wrote her before they had ever met, when they were just like writing to each other when they were children. She kept all of the letters in a tin, and that was what was in the cabinet of the last episode. And it shows that Mai, despite the fact that she's sometimes a little emotionally distant towards her sister, cares for her very deeply and has for a long time, and treasures her sister a lot and their relationship together. And this is where the creepy sound part happens, was when they crack back to each other.
Oh, I get what you're talking about.
Yeah, because they hug, and then instead of like them snapping back mentally, their bodies transform, and it's like a loud crack, like a cracks of bone breaking, and instead of their minds switching place, their bodies have physically morphed into each other, and so you see them like morph back, and it's freaking weird, dude.
Yeah, I thought it was really odd too, because they're still wearing the exact same clothes. Like, it's not like their bodies switched. Like, it was definitely different, especially since the clothes stayed the same. Like, Nodoka was still like had Mai's bunny headband in her hair.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
it was something.
It was something, all right. It was freaking weird. And you know what it reminded me of? There's a Simpsons episode, a Halloween episode of The Simpsons from back when I was a kid, where they turn inside out. Like, there's a gas that comes around and, like, it turns them all inside out. And it's quick. Like, the thing about the transformation is that it happens within, like, a second, maybe. It's very, very quick. And it reminded me of that Halloween episode of The Simpsons because of how quick it is and how gross it is. Like, it's genuinely, like, it's jarring. And I think that was intentional to really, like, solidify how mentally and physically taxing adolescent syndrome is, that it's not like a little, like, casual fantasy trope or whatever of the anime. Like, it's a serious psychological and scientific thing. And I think occasionally, because of the context of the anime, because they're teenagers, because it was about them being an idol and, like, things like that, it made it a little bit too youthful and too, like, happy anime trope kind of thing. And then putting that in there at the end of the episode brought you right back to this is mentally damaging. And it was a good setup for the next few episodes to come afterwards.
And then there's a handy little end credit scene at the end too, after, well, I mean, again, end credit scene, or after credits anyway, of Nodoka moving in with Mai. Because Nodoka has another fight with her mom, even though, you know, everything is supposed to be patched up. And then, at the same time, Mai gets a call from her agency, and they're like, oh shit. Because while Mai and Nodoka had swapped bodies, Mai had Sakata look after Nodoka. And so while he was looking after her, walking her to school, all that other stuff, they got photographed together. And the world was lit afire with, oh my god, that her boyfriend, she's dating some nobody. Yeah. Oh my god.
Yes, and up until this point, her agency had banned her from dating, kind of like idols are banned from dating. Despite the fact that it is different for actors, but her agency had just said, because she's with a new agency now, she's not with her mom, had said, yeah, you're not allowed to date. And so they were keeping it very, like, hush-hush. But yeah, at the end of it, you get to see friggin' paparazzi being paparazzi people. Episode 11 is the Kyode quest. And it opens up with Mai revealing her love to the press, and it's so cute. It's such a cute little press conference. It's adorable. She's got full backing of her managers and, like, the director of the show that she's on. They're joking about how it's good publicity for them. She's apologizing for causing social turmoil and whatever, but she's also like, please respect him because he's just a normal boy and he doesn't need all of the, like, the media attention, so please respect his boundaries. And it's really cute.
It's absolutely adorable. And, it's so good.
It's so cute. So then, Sakura, as he's walking around, he ends up seeing Kyode, who's his little sister's childhood friend from before everything happened. And she asks if she can come visit. And he's basically like, nah, fam. Like, she's okay, but, like, we're not there yet. And Kyode starts making a checklist of things that she wants to do, accomplishments that she wants to make. Those are things like answering the phone for someone who isn't her brother, because she can't leave the house without it, like, causing a panic attack. Like, she's stuck in the house. She doesn't go to school. She's clearly mentally not okay. Throughout the entire show, you can kind of see that, and it progresses well throughout it. And so she makes this checklist of accomplishments she wants to make, and she answers the phone for the first time for Mai, who's in the house. She just goes into another room and calls. And when she does that, she ends up collapsing, and you see the bruises reappearing. And this is where I was talking about how I don't think the bruises were done very well in the art style, because I thought it was like a blood clot thing. Like, I thought she was, like, gonna die. You know, I thought it was incredibly serious, but then it just wasn't. It was just a bruise, you know? But the way that it appeared on her neck made me think she's just burst her, like, jugular and is bleeding from the inside out and she's gonna die. Like, genuinely, that's the impression that it gave me, and then it wasn't. It was just a bruise. So that threw me for a loop.
I'd seen some other anime before this to where, like, I knew it was bruising, but, like, just because it was done in a very similar manner, but I was still just kind of watching it, just being like, like, that could have been done a lot better. It's like, I get what you're going for. I do. But, come on now.
Yeah. I think it was just because of the seriousness of the impression of the last episode, like the feeling of that, because I have seen this kind of bruising before in other animes as well. But I think it was just because I was still going off of, like, I binged this whole thing. So I was still going off of that feeling from the crack back of the episode 10, so that then when I watched this one, in my head I was still very much, this is real serious, like, dark, intense moment that they had created with the very end of episode 10. Even though it had kind of softened a little bit with the press conference, my mind immediately went to serious. It didn't go to halfway there. And yeah, so I did immediately think this is much more serious than it evidently was in the anime. But basically she starts to, like, slowly try and do her best to check through these things on her checklist to try and make progress in being able to leave the house. Her goal is that she wants to go to middle school. She wants to go to school. And she gets bruises after making the phone call, and she attempts to leave the house, but it takes, like, a lot of energy for her to get up and leave the house, and takes a long time. She ends up... it's just like the episode is a lot of progress, like her getting to the front door, her leaving the house, her getting to the front step of the apartment building, her walking down the street. Like, it's a lot of progress, slow progress, which is perfectly normal. Like, that's how you make progress after having a mental breakdown, anxiety, like trauma or whatever.
Also, crack out number one happened for me in this episode. Because the moment to where, like, because they, like, spend the first half of the episode, like, finally leading up to her, like, getting, like, taking just her first step outside of the apartment. They spend a good 5 minutes, like, just talking, and, like, Sakata trying to talk Kaede into going outside. And so, like, she gets dressed, and she's, like, all ready, and then she wraps her arms around him as tightly as possible. And so he opens up the door, and he's like, okay, like, we're going to do this one step at a time. And so he starts, you know, like, kind of inching her forward and everything. And she's like, are we outside yet? And he's like, no, not yet, just a few more steps. And then, so finally, and they're already outside at this point, but she doesn't know that because her eyes are shut. She's, like, holding on to him as tightly as humanly possible. And she's like, no, I can't do it. Like, I can't. Like, we can try again another day. And so Sakata pulls away from her, and she looks up and sees that she's, like, actually stepped through the threshold of the house and that he was lying. And she just collapses and starts crying. And so he's like, kneels down. He's like, look, I'm sorry. Like, I didn't mean to lie to you. She's like, no, I'm crying because I'm happy. And then he starts crying. Like, I think it's the first time that we've, like, actually seen him cry. And he was just like...
it was the first time you saw him do any kind of emotion other than, like, sarcasm, flirting, love declaration. Like, it's all... He never took... Like, even when it was serious, his serious was, like, a frown. You know, like, he... It was the first time you saw some kind of, like, really impactful, intense emotion from him. And that wasn't a positive one, because you've seen a couple of positive ones, but, like, you hadn't seen it necessarily... It's not negative, I suppose, but, like, you know, a conflicting emotion from him.
And it made me, as a viewer, like, also, like, just feel, like, so incredibly proud. And, like,
I did too,
just, like,
I got teary-eyed,
like,
but I didn't cry.
Oh, I mean, I didn't cry, but a tear fell, which, as we have discussed, counts as a cry count.
Counts as a cry. Yeah, no tears fell for me, but I did get a little bit sniffly.
But, yeah, it was just such an amazing moment. And, like, even though the show, like, you know, we talked about it before, and we even talked about it, you know, with this episode as well, with it being, like, it having its moments of, like, the animation not being there, or them not doing certain things right. The storytelling does everything right. Like, I don't think there's really just
true. The
a
storytelling
moment
is a 10
of
out of
the
10.
show of it just being like, yeah, but no, like it was just such a beautiful moment to where like truly like making a viewer feel proud of something
Yeah.
happening. Like I'm like, that is a damn good thing to be able to do. So good on y'all.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. So the episode kind of ends with them going to the beach. She started like going out, she's going to a park, things like that. She made good progress. And it kind of does a little montage of her after getting through the door. It does a little montage of her like getting to the front step of the building and then going to the park and stuff. And then they decide that they want to go to the beach.
But wait,
And
no,
it's very
never mind,
sweet.
not this episode. I got it confused with the next one. Okay, we can go.
Yeah. So they go to the beach, and when they get to the beach, they see her childhood friend, who they haven't like seen. Like he had said, the Sakata had said in the episode beforehand, I think it was, or earlier in this episode, she's doing okay, but you can't come see her. And then he ends up seeing her at the beach, and she calls out to her because they're childhood friends. And Kere has no memory of her. And that's when the episode ends. Episode 12 is Life is a Never-Ending Dream. And this episode starts with them discussing Kere's memory loss. And this is when you learn that she has no memory of her life before her life in isolation in the house, before, like basically after the incident of the adolescence thing happening. She has no memory of her childhood. She has no memory of the bullying. She just woke up in the hospital, and that's her memory. She only has memory of the past 2 years of basically living in isolation inside the house, and that's why it was even more terrifying for her to go outside. Because up until this point, you're thinking that it's terrifying for her to go outside because of the bullying that happened previously. But now you understand that it's terrifying for her to go outside of the house because in her memory, she's never been outside of the house before.
And
she doesn't know what it's like.
This is another one of those points too, to where like for you, like the crack of them like switching bodies back, like this episode with them talking about that was really impactful to me because like the way they talked about it, like they're like her like brain, like her memory, like it snapped, like she legitimately broke to where like her brain was like, no, fuck that, none of that, like we're killing all of it. And like that to me, just because the way like they phrased it, I was just like, damn.
Yeah, well, she developed a dissociative disorder, which is something that can happen in real life. And so it's just basically a disorder where your brain puts up an amnesic wall. I can speak. Basically, a wall of amnesia to where, for your brain's survival, your brain has gone through all of your survival mechanisms and you've got none left. And so for survival, your brain decides, we need to concentrate on this right now. We cannot be worrying about anything else. So we're just gonna put it in a file, lock the drawer, and throw away the key. And we're gonna lock those memories away, and we're gonna put up this wall of amnesia, and we're not going to register those at all. It's PTSD is something very similar to it. Like basically, when you're experiencing the stress of your PTSD, your brain isn't registering what you're consuming as a memory. It's not processing it. It says we can process this later, so we're not going to worry. And then we're going to focus on surviving. And then later on, when your brain decides, okay, we're safe now, we're okay, we're going to go back and process those old memories. And that's why you experience it as a flashback, because you're not experiencing those things as a memory. You're being transported back into that time so that your brain can then eventually process it as a memory. So you're not like thinking back to it, you're re-experiencing it until your brain can absorb it into the memory category rather than into the right now category. And that's how flashbacks happen. Which is why they're so incredibly terrifying for people who have PTSD. So yeah.
And you see this talked about a lot in like criminal justice and whatnot as well.
Yes.
Because you have like people who are victims of crime, whether, no matter what it may be. And like they'll always get witness statements from the victim, and the victim is just like, I don't know. Even though it happened to them.
Yeah.
They're just like, I have no clue. And their story will also change.
Yeah.
Depending on like what they were told and everything beforehand, because that's like their brain just completely blocked it out, or they're
Yeah.
just choosing not to remember because it's just that traumatic. So
Yeah.
it's definitely something that's very real. So I don't know, it's just the way it was explained and done in this. I was just like, fuck.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting because there's a lot of true psychological and scientific like tropes throughout this whole anime. Like it's like they took science and they just turned it up to 11, you know? They didn't create anything new. All they did was show theories, which is very, very interesting. Because they
It's like they
get
took science and turned it into science fiction with like
yeah.
visually portraying these like scientific and like psychological things and like giving life to it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's incredibly interesting. It's very, very well done. Because yeah, they found like the foundation of everything that happens in here is either in science or in psychology. And yeah, it's incredibly interesting. For instance, one thing that I didn't actually mention with Butt Kick Girl is that Koga is the reason why that he was also stuck in the time loop with her is because of the quantum particle entanglement, where basically when they kicked each other's butts, a particle of her and a particle of his started vibrating on the same frequency. And because of that level of vibration, when she was transported back into time, he was along her same like synchronization because of that particle. And so he was also transported back in time to do the Groundhog Day thing too. And that is a thing. It is just a scientific theory that is discussed. It's like why people can have psychological connections with other people across the world, supposedly because of this quantum particle entanglement thing that I'm not very good at explaining because I've only ever heard one person talk about it. But yeah, it's like a legit theory that is discussed in certain scientific communities. And I found that very interesting because like I had heard about that prior, and then to see it crop up in an anime I wasn't expecting about. Yeah, interesting. So yeah, so they start explaining the family backstory. You learn more about his dynamic with his dad. You learn more about her. And you learn more about Shoko, who is his first crush, his first love, and his mentor.
But it was also like going through all this, like I kind of got the feeling that like I don't think like she was ever like a true love interest.
No, it's just that she was the only person that was there for him.
Yeah, because it was always like kind of like you always kind of thought that going through it, but then you finally get the like he goes through everything, and it was like I don't think that he was ever truly like in love with her, but I think it was a kind of situation of like where you tell your friends you love them and whatnot.
Yeah.
Like it was one of those
I think
kind of
yeah.
situations.
Yeah, I think he thought that he was in love with her because he found such comfort in her that he hadn't found in anybody else. I mean, she was the only one there that he could talk to, the only one that believed him when he was trying to explain to the doctors about how he got these gashes along his chest that just supposedly magically appeared out of nowhere, but they actually appeared because when his sister lost all of her memories, the grief of it all caused his own adolescent syndrome, and that caused him to effectively self-harm himself, but without doing it himself, like somebody else, like the universe, I don't know, the magic of this show did it to him. And when he was trying to explain it to the doctors, nobody believed him. They said it was self-harm, that it was self-inflicted. His parents didn't believe him. His mom had just had her own mental like collapsing because of the situation with her daughter. His sister now has absolutely no memories of him, and then he's being told that they're moving because of the bullying, and then he's also now having to look after his sister. Well, later on, he ends up having to look after his sister alone while his parents are gone. And it just became too much for him. And it manifested in his own adolescent syndrome. And so then she was the only one there that would actually like lend an ear to him and believe him, or at least pretend to believe him, like listen to him. And because of that, he found immense comfort in her. And I think so it was a form of loving, but it wasn't the same form, like it wasn't romantic love, but he thought of it as romantic love because he had never experienced romantic love before, and he found such comfort in her.
Mm-hmm. And so with all of this going on, like, so with after they get done explaining that, while they were at the beach, Kotomi, Kaede's friend, gives Sakuta back a book, and she's like, I borrowed this book from Kaede, but whenever y'all moved, I didn't have the opportunity to give it back, and it was Kaede's favorite book. So she's like, here, you can give this to her, maybe it'll help, and just kind of, but also, like, I just need to give it back to her anyway. And so Sakuta gives it back to Kaede, and Kaede starts flipping through it. She's like, oh, so this was Kaede-san's book. And you start to figure out, like, because once it's all explained, like, it finally clicks of, okay, Kaede refers to herself as Kaede-san because she's, like, it's a completely different person.
Yeah.
And so gives her back the book, and in it there's a torn piece of paper, and it was a note from Kotomi saying, like, I want to be friends with Kaede-san. And, like, so, Kaede collapses again, so they go through the whole, like, hospital rigmarole, and they're like, her memories are starting to return.
Yeah.
But it also, whenever this happens, Kaede gets even more determined to, like, want to go back to school and, like, finish off everything in her checklist.
Yeah.
And so, like, at this point, like, she's still getting out of the house and doing all this stuff. And so she's like, okay, I'm ready to go to school. And so for, like, 3 days straight, like, she tries, they get, like, down the road a good ways, they get ready to turn the corner, but they see girls that go to her same school walking and talking, and Kaede stops. And you see the bruises start to, like, really creep up.
Yeah.
And so she's like, no, I can't do it. And so they go home. But then I think on, like, the third or fourth day, whenever it was, or it could have been weeks at this point, it doesn't really necessarily give you a time frame. But so they're like, okay, well, we're going to go home, or you've made it far enough, so let's take a break. And so they take a break and they go to the zoo. Because Kaede, like, throughout the entire show, like, she's always wearing a panda onesie because the panda is her favorite.
Yeah.
And so they go to the zoo, and she gets to see the pandas. It was absolutely adorable.
Yeah.
And I got a really huge chuckle out of it.
Yeah, I did
because
too.
they see a fox, like, hanging out in a tree, and she's like, oh, it's a trash panda.
Was it a fox or was it a red panda?
It was like a fox or a raccoon or something. Like, it wasn't a panda in any means. It was like a lesser panda.
Lesser panda. Yeah, I always thought, I don't know, okay.
But it was absolutely adorable.
Yeah.
It was hilarious. And so while, like, whenever they leave, Sakuta gives Kaede an annual pass, and he's like, you need to
come back because I bought it.
It costs a lot of money. So, yeah, so we need to come back a lot. And he's like, every day, like, after you go home, like, as a reward for going to school, you can come by here. And so on their way home, like, he tells Kaede it's a shortcut. She's like, but isn't the way home that way? He's like, no, I know a shortcut because I'm more experienced than you with walking home. And so he ends up taking her to the school. And they hop the fence, and he shows her classroom. Yeah. And so she's like, oh, so this is where I'm going to be going to school.
She's like, does this count? Can I cross it off my checklist?
And so, like, as they're walking home, she's like, okay, I'm just going to put a triangle on it. And then tomorrow, I'm actually, like, she's like, I'll actually be able to. And then the next morning comes, and you get my second cry count of the show. Because, like, you see Sakuta snap because he goes in to check on Kaede, because typically, like, she wakes him up every morning. But today she wasn't up yet, so he goes in to check on her, and, like, she wakes up, but you can immediately tell, like, it's not her, and then she speaks, and the way that she speaks is completely different. And it's like, you see him, like, in his face, like, he just snaps. And, like, at that point, I cried. I was like, no. Like, how could you do this?
It's so sad, yeah. Another thing was the reason why she loves pandas, which is also sad. I don't know if this is this episode or the next episode, I can't remember, but in one of these two episodes, the reason why she loves pandas is because he, after she just came home from the hospital, he got her a panda documentary to cheer her up, like right at the beginning. And so that was like her first interaction with the world, other than the hospital and then coming home, was watching this panda documentary, and it caused her to like fall in love with pandas. And it was like the reason why she loved pandas so much is because of her brother, and it's so cute.
Yeah, I think it was in the next episode
Yeah.
because like whenever he gets like her notebook read to him, I think that's whenever it explains it all. Because let me tell you, episode 13 is a roller coaster of emotions. Like and not only is it a roller coaster of emotions, it is a brain fuck. Like it makes you rethink everything from the show.
So let's just jump into it. Episode 13 is called The Dawn After an Endless... The Dawn After a Down. I can read. The Dawn After an Endless Night. And my first note here is a sad face that's crying, and it just says, so sad. Ugh. Yeah. So Kaydo's memories have officially returned, but her 2 years of isolation are completely gone. All of those memories that she experienced during those 2 years at home are gone. And so she's back at the hospital. Their dad is there. And she's getting like CAT scans and brain scans and stuff, and they're talking to her about everything. And as she's in the hospital bed, and her dad is congratulating her because her dad hasn't been in her life for the past 2 years. You know, he left her and left her. Like, he didn't come and visit. Like, and so in his mind, oh, congratulations, you've returned to your old self. I have my daughter back again. But to Sakata, the whole person that he's been living with and taking care of for the past 2 years has just disappeared. And you can really see that difference in dynamic between the two family members in this scene. Because the dad is just like cheery and happy that his daughter, in his mind, is back to him. And he's got no grief for the person who has just been lost. And he also has zero understanding of the impact that would be having on Sakata. He just thinks that his feelings are going to be the same as Sakata's, like, oh, she's back now, we can like not worry about it anymore. And it's just too much for Sakata, so he runs out of the hospital and runs down the street. And as he's running down the street, you see the blood of his shirt, of the 3 scars across his chest, start appearing again, and he collapses, and he is a big old mess. When Shoko, his first love and his mentor, all of a sudden appears in her adult form, because throughout this entire time, the only time that you've experienced her, other than in flashbacks, has been in her child form when she's come to check up on the white cat that was found under the tree on the rainy day. And she's now her, like, teenage form again. And she takes him home and bathes him. Well, not bathes him. He gets in the bath and she's outside the door. But, like, basically she ran the bath, and because he's distraught. Like, he is emotionally destroyed. As he is in the bath, she is talking to him about his, like, about the fact, like, he feels guilty that he didn't do enough for his sister, and she starts talking about the fact that that's not how his sister felt about the situation.
Mm. And so while all that's going on, like, Shoko gets Kaide's notebook and starts reading all of the entries out of it, because it shows that Sakata was the one who got Kaide that notebook whenever it was her first day home from the hospital.
Yeah.
And he's like, write whatever you want to in it. And so it starts off being a, like, diary, essentially. And she's like, it's my first day home. Like, my brother bought me this movie or this panda documentary. And it's like, maybe this is something that Kaide-san would have liked. And so, but she's like, she's like, everything's weird, everything's off, but my brother is the only one who understands me and is willing to give me a chance. And so that explains, like, the whole, like, I can't necessarily call this a sister complex, because it's not.
No.
I mean, it kind of comes across that way at first, but then you get to this point, it's just like, wow, like, that is something.
Yeah. Well, as soon as you start understanding that the only person that she's ever really interacted with until Sakuta starts dating Mai and she starts coming over, and then his other friends come over, because obviously, like, he doesn't have friends. He's been isolated for the past 2 years as well because of the incident, because everyone thinks that he, like, sent 3 people to the hospital, and so the only 2 friends are Science Girl and Basketball Boy. But Rio was not interested in going around. She was based in her lab and stuck up there. And Yama, who's the basketball, like, best friend dude, he's always at practice and stuff, so, like, he didn't really interact with him. So for the past 2 years, she's been living in isolation with only her brother as social interaction. And so, yeah, you think, oh my god, it's a like, brother-sister trope thing, but it's, brother complex kind of thing. But it's not, because once you understand that that is the only person other than doctor's visits that she has had any interaction with and any kind of conversation with, because she's too scared to talk to other people, like, she doesn't talk to them, then you start to understand more as to why she was acting the way that she was acting, and that it's not a brother complex.
And so, like, goes through, like, day by day how she's feeling, and then you get to the point where she, like, starts to get her memories back, and she's like, okay, I'm going to make a checklist because I don't want Sakuta to have regrets, and I don't want him to feel bad about all this happening to me. Like, I want him, like, to be filled with nothing but happy memories about this time. And so, like, as Shoko is reading all this, like, he's, like, to him it's being read in his head as Kaede. And again, like, I'm being teary through all of this. But so... And then goes through the checklist, and you see the memories of it all happening, and it's all really sweet. And then Sakuta passes out and wakes up the next morning.
Well, it's really sweet, but also there is that moment of him completely breaking down and sobbing his eyes out, and that's the first time where you see, like, since, like, he's, like, he cries and screams and stuff when his chest splits open in the middle of the street, but then at this point, it's like, he's not screaming out of frustration at that point. He's crying because he's allowing himself to grieve. And that was kind of a good point of character development.
And it was also, like, I think it was just kind of a point of him, like, because this whole time, like, he's felt nothing but guilt. But I think at this point, he's like, I've got it all wrong. And, like, I shouldn't be feeling this way. And so it's just, like, a huge bundle of emotion that he just finally was able to let out, and then, like, essentially cries himself to sleep in the bath. He wakes up the next morning in bed, and he's like, I don't even remember how I got here. And on the counter there's a note from Shoko saying that she had let herself out. And then, but after that, like, she was gone. Like, she couldn't be found anywhere, anything like that. And he talks but during this time, Mai has, like, the reason why she wasn't the one to, like, comfort him and help him was because she's in another city working on the drama. And she's at work. And after, like, he gave her a phone call, basically just being like, her memories have come back. I'm okay. It's fine. And, like, very much bottling up his emotions, not expressing it, but she could hear the strain in his voice, and so she tried to rush back as quickly as she could, which happens to be for the next morning when he wakes up. And so Mai comes over and is comforting him about all of this, and, like, so she's doing everything she can to be, like, what he needs and whatnot in that time, and she's...
Yeah, and I think she thinks that he's going to be much more of a mess than he was. Like, he was kind of okay by that point because he'd kind of gotten it all out the night before. And I think she's expecting to walk in on him being completely devastated, like, being at the point that he, like, I think she's expecting to walk in on him with his chest, like, completely slashed open. One point I will say here is that when she walks in, he's shirtless, and his chest was literally slashed open the night before. And she doesn't comment on it, and it looks like his normal scar.
And, like, it was even said, like, the night before, like, whenever Shoko was, like, helping him get undressed. Just a shirt, nothing else. Although she offers, he turns her down. But she's like, okay, it's already clotted. And then, like, you see him in the bath, and it still looks like it always has. And I'm like,
Yeah, no. I wish they'd extended that a little bit. Because I think that would have been a really good dynamic between Mai and him to be like, maybe she just didn't notice at first. Because, like, that's what I was thinking. I was like, she just didn't notice. That's weird. Like, he answered the door shirtless and she's just, like, so concerned that she didn't see. And then she was angry at him, so she didn't see. And then I was expecting them at the end when they, like, meet back up again. To mention it again, for him to like hug her or something, and then go like ow, and then she's like, oh, what happened? And then he's like, oh, it's nothing, and then she lifts up his shirt and sees, and then she's like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, and like there was another moment there between them, but it wasn't. It just kind of healed, and that was it. So that was a criticism I had there.
No, I agree wholeheartedly. Like, this 25-minute episode should have been like a 45-minute one. Like, it should have been a double. They could have done a lot more with it, because I feel like they kind of wrapped everything up really quickly.
Yeah, it does kind of rush it a little bit.
But I think it almost could have been like they didn't think like they were going to get anything afterwards. Like, they didn't know they were going to make a film.
Yeah, true.
So that's the only thing I can think of, because they wrapped it up real quick. But
yeah. But I still would have liked to have seen something with the scar, because, I mean, it was bleeding quite profusely the day before, and then he wakes up in the morning and it's healed, and it's just, like, as it is normally. I mean, it is a show that's based around magic and stuff, but, like, the first time that his scar got open, he was in hospital for months, and now he's just fine. Like, I don't know. It was inconsistent.
Yeah, definitely. And so, while Mai's over there, like, she, tells him to go get dressed, and while he's getting dressed, she sees the note from Shoko on the counter. And so Sakata comes out of his room and it's like, hey, I'm ready. Like, I'm ready to spend time with you. And she's just like, what's this? And he explains to her, like, she found me while I was in the street and, like, she was just comforting me and all this, but it wasn't anything else. And Mai just storms out the door, and he tries to follow her. And he's just like, look, like, I'm really sorry about everything. She's like, no, like, those aren't the words I want to hear right now. And then elevator door closes. And, like, you just see, like, Sakata being broken for, like, all day that day, like, goes to work, and it's all sad and everything.
Yeah, but he also kind of brushes it off in a sense of, like, he's upset about it, but he doesn't do anything about it. He just kind of is like, it's part of his personality throughout all of this to be super accepting. Something happens, oh, well, that's the way that it is, I can't do anything about it. And this is where the first time that it kind of works really negatively for him, because, yeah, like, whenever somebody comes to him with a scenario, whenever he's trapped in, like, the Groundhog Day, whenever there's two of Rio's or whatever, like, he always just, his immediate, first initial thought is just, well, that's the way that it is, is what it is. And that's his personality. And in this case, it's the first time where you see that aspect of his personality is actually detrimental in certain circumstances.
And so he just continues on life as normal, but you can tell, like, he's not okay. Like, he's still really down about it, but he's trying his best to go through it. And he gets through his work shift while also breaking everything. And so as he's leaving Denny's, or whatever this show called it, Danny's, maybe? I don't know. It's Denny's. Anyway. So as he's leaving, Nodoka is waiting for him outside, and she's like, you need to go see Mai. And he's like, but, like, she needed time, I needed time, all this other stuff. She's like, no. She's like, she rushed all the way back to see you, and also, today is her birthday. She's like, how could you forget that today was her birthday? So he's like, oh, shit, where is she? Like, I gotta go find her right now. And so he catches the last bullet train to wherever they are on her filming set and runs into her, and, like, so they leave because he gets there right as they're finishing up their filming. And so they're like, okay, we'll get you a room at the hotel, hopefully. But her manager, like, lets him off at a little pier overlook thing. She's like, okay, y'all can have 15 minutes for a date.
Oh, yeah.
And so, like, they have, like, a really nice touching moment, like, up there on the, overlook thing. But Mai's also like, I'm cold, so jacket sharing trip.
Yeah, it's cute. But, like, in that moment, I was expecting him to, like, flinch or something and be like, ow. And then she question it. Because up until this point, like, it hadn't been brought up again. But then, like, they both go to, like, snuggle, and he's just fine, despite the fact that less than 48 hours beforehand, he had 3 giant gashes in his chest. Like, I don't know. That makes me angry.
But, which I do have a point on that kind of thought process as well, is that it could also kind of make sense because as they're going through life and, life is getting better for Sakata and his relationship with Mai is growing and everything, like Mai makes a comment of, oh, hey, like it looks like your scars are starting to go away. So maybe it could have been one of those things, like,
maybe. Yeah, they did mention that it was more shallow than the last time, but like, I
don't know.
I just
like,
don't.
I kind of gave it a pass
think...
on that. Like, I think they could have done more with it, but I still kind of gave it a pass because they
I didn't. It made me frustrated while I was watching it, and that's my biggest critique on things, is like, I don't get mad about stuff if while I'm watching it I don't notice, but then when I'm going to critique, I notice, because if I'm only noticing when I'm going to like pick it apart, then it clearly wasn't very impactful during the show. Like, it wasn't a mistake that made me think about the fact that I'm watching an anime, you know? Like, I don't want to be thinking about the fact that I'm watching an anime when I'm watching an anime. I want to just be completely involved in the story.
Yeah.
But in that circumstance, it pulled me out of the show, and I became aware of my surroundings again because I was frustrated at the fact that his wound just magically healed. And for me, that makes it a big negative, if it pulls me out of the story, especially in a moment as intense as that, it's not a good trope, not a good moment. It's not good.
It's not good.
It's not good. I'm mad about it.
But yeah, so they have a little moment of sharing a jacket, and while they're there, like, Sakata apologizes because he's like, she was literally just there to comfort me. And so Mai is like, no, she's like, no, I'm the one who needs to apologize because I couldn't be there, like, when you needed me. It's like, as your girlfriend, that's my job. Like, that's my responsibility. And, like...
And then she also apologizes for kind of overreacting a little bit. But she was just hurt and overwhelmed and everything was happening. But, like, yeah, she apologized for being, like, a little bit overreacting.
And to which, like, he responds, and this was probably, like, the cutest thing out of all of it, to where he's just like, she's like, I didn't need you there for that. Like, I'm truly just happy having you here with me right now. And I was like,
he's very smooth.
It's the smoothest stuff ever. It's so cute. It's great. And I was just like, I audibly awed on that one.
Yeah.
Because I was sitting there,
too.
like, tears in my eyes. I was like, aww.
Yeah, I've got, like, little hearts drawn all over this because it's just cute. All of my notes consist of stupid drawings and notes and, like, giant things in capital letters. And that was one that got a little heart because it was freaking cute. And
then, like, so the entire time, like, the most he's gotten out of her was a kiss on the cheek. And so so she's like, okay, close your eyes. And so he closes his eyes and leans in, and she just stamps on his foot again. And she's like,
I know, and you're sitting on the edge of your seat like, it's finally gonna happen, they're gonna have their kiss, it's gonna be so cute.
And then like, she stamps on his foot, and she's like, that's not what I was wanting. She's like, no, but she's like, I know that's what you would want. And then it, like, scrolls up into the sky, and the ED plays, and it goes through all the credits. But the credits are, like, showing everything that leads up to this point. And then you get one last post-credit scene, and it's Sakata and Kaede leaving the hospital, packing up their bags. And he thanks her for everything. And then she's like, I'm going to go to school. And she's like, I can do it knowing that I'm not going to be alone anymore. And I was like, oh, it's so cute.
It's really cute. And then he asks her if she still likes pandas, and she's like, what?
It was such a really cute moment, but
it is a cute moment.
It was really good. I enjoyed it a lot.
I did enjoy it. I enjoyed it a lot. As well. I really did enjoy it. I really liked the psychological aspects of it. I really liked the scientific explanations behind the things that were happening. Just a couple little things that bugged me. And that was the first and only time right towards the end there where I was, like, drawn out of the anime because of something bugging me. But yeah, what do you think that you would give it out of 10? Out of 10 anime bunnies, how many bunnies does it get?
It can have a solid, well, since you put it that way, I gotta give it either an 8 or a 9, because a half bunny just sounds gory and terrible. But
a half bunny.
But no, like I give it an 8.5. It's not perfect by any means. The
Hmm.
storytelling to me is perfect. There's a lot of things that could have been helped by animation, so I can't take that away
Yeah,
from the story
yeah.
by any means. If they had just switched the story up a little bit, if they had bumped up the animation like a good bit more, I probably would have gave it like a 9.5.
Yeah, if they had bumped up the animation and fixed that one freaking thing with the scar, I would have given it like a freaking 9.5 too. Because it's really good. Bingeability gets a 10 out of 10. It's heckin' bingeable. The intro and outro, the OP and EP are they're cool. Yeah, I liked the OP. It's rocky. It's cool. But like, I'm not gonna download them and listen to them. So yeah, decent.
Well, the ED
The
though, I thought was excellent because I don't know if you noticed or if you did your usual you thing and skipped through it, but the ED changed with every episode, or technically every other episode. Like the
hmm
person
I
that it
did.
centered around was different
hmm
depending on who it was
I did
dealing with.
enjoy that. Yeah, the visuals
Yeah,
were
I was
good.
like,
I
that's
actually like the visuals for the OP as well.
and like the ED was probably the most like visually satisfying thing as far as animation goes the entire time because watching
Hmm.
them like start walking in the daytime and as they're walking just the sun sets and by the time they get to
Mm-hmm.
whoever they're with like the sun's down but just watching the sun glisten off of the water like I am a sucker
Hmm.
for water animation like water
Yeah.
animation is ugh. And as somebody who absolutely detests the ocean in real life like oceans in games and oceans in anime like I am a sucker for just really good ocean
What was it?
animation.
Oh yeah, I was playing Spyro on stream the other day, and their ocean in the Reignited trilogy is just like the same, like 16 by 16 pixel square, just repasted over and over again. And I was so mad. I was like, "What is this ocean? You can't even call this an
I
ocean."
think it looks
Um,
better with like because I had my graphics turned all the way up, and I think
right,
it looks
it looks
better
better that way.
whenever it's turned all the way up because I know you had some issues with like your graphics and everything not wanting to like work properly.
Yeah, yeah, but I have mainly got those figured out. So I think next Spyro stream, I'll see if I can jump them up a bit and see what that goes on about. But anyway, that's completely a different
Yeah,
subject
yeah,
from what
yeah.
we're
It's a
going on
different
about.
time, but I
Yeah,
had to.
that's a different topic. Yeah, no, it's yeah. I would probably give this a 7.5 to 8 out of 10. I really like the story. I like the fact that it's based in science. I love the psychology aspects. Those are interests of mine and my like self. I'm not a very scientific person, but the psychology aspects was definitely very interesting, and I always love to learn more about science, even though I'm terrible at it. So yeah, I did really enjoy that aspect. I thought that was super unique in a way of explaining the kind of supernatural stuff that was happening.
Mm,
I was irritated by the animation style for the scars, so that is like a point knocked off. That last little bit that drew me out of, like, in the final episode, it just pulled me out of the anime. Like, they were doing so well, and right at the end, it just drew me out. And it's not like, I mean, it doesn't make me dislike the anime anymore. It just makes me frustrated a little bit. And because of that, yeah, I had to take off a little point because it drew me out of the anime, and that's like a thing that I didn't enjoy. And yeah, freaking idiotic parents also annoyed me a little
oh
bit.
yeah,
So
like Dad made me real angry. Like
real angry because like they try and make him come off like a really good guy, you know, in their conversations and advice and stuff. Like, but you just like he's a douche.
oh yeah, real big douche. Like
Real big douche.
I do not like negative. I give this dad negative 10 anime dads out of
Negative
anime
10 anime
moms.
dads out of anime moms. I give anime. Yeah, I mean, he's just not a good dad. Um, but yeah, like overall, I thought it was really, really good. I definitely recommend watching it. It's incredibly bingeable. And you do want to watch episode to episode to episode. So watch it when you know that you're not going to do anything else that day, because I guarantee you'll probably go through it in like a day or two. If you're a binger, you will binge
Like
this.
it's the episodes are like a couple minutes longer than your stereotypical anime episodes. But set
Mhm.
aside 4 hours to where you're not doing anything. Because let's face it, we all got 4 hours right now with
Yeah.
everything going on.
Yeah.
Set aside four
Yeah,
hours
right.
and just watch it. Like
Yeah, give it a
I
watch.
realize we've been like just picking shows that we really enjoy, but because of like everything that's going on, everything getting delayed and whatnot, like there's not a lot of just like brand new stuff to talk about outside of series. There aren't like new films that we can like go out and watch or anything like that. So we're just kind of picking things that we like and are covering. So like I realize we say that a lot, but the reason we're picking them is because we do really like them and they are really good shows, and having something that you just really like and really enjoy makes it a lot easier to talk about and makes you a lot more enthusiastic about it while you do it.
Yeah, and we are also trying to pick things that, like, one person has seen but the other one hasn't. For instance, with Daily Lives of High School Boys and Are You Lost? I'd seen both of them, but Brad hadn't seen them until we reviewed. And for this one, Brad had already seen part of it, first 6 episodes, but I hadn't seen it at all, and I went into it completely blank. I didn't even read any kind of description on it. I just searched it on Crunchyroll and pressed play. So we are trying to do things that at least one of us hasn't seen or hasn't seen all the way through so that we can have kind of a fresh perspective on it. But I also find that very interesting because I'm definitely the kind of person that after I watch something, I will rate it really highly. Like, I'll love it, rate it really highly. So I'm trying to be really objective in these ratings, but after I just finish watching something, I tend to rate things really high. So I would actually be really interested at the end of the year maybe to go through and tier list all of the podcasts that we did, that we featured shows from, and rank them on a list of however many we end up doing.
I agree.
At the end of the
like
year.
How Crunchyroll has their like anime awards. Like we can have like our podcast awards of like going through everything and just kind of ranking things.
A year-end review.
Yeah.
Because I think that some of the things that we rate super highly right now are not going to hold up in 6 months' time compared to things that we're rating then. So it's going to be very interesting to see. But yeah, I think it's really good. I enjoy it. It's not at all what the title makes you think that it is, and it's very intellectual. It's emotional, but not in a way that is super draining. Like, for instance,
Your Lie in April.
Your Lie in April. Yeah, Your Lie in April was incredibly draining after I watched it. I needed like a break. I needed to watch something super happy. This does cover some very serious subjects, and it does cover a lot of very deeply emotional stuff. But after I finished it, I wasn't drained. I wasn't exhausted. I didn't need to watch something happy. I was just interested. I just found it enjoyable.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And it was one of those things to where, like I said, I'd only seen the first 5 episodes. I'd stopped on episode 6. So rewatching it, like I of course started from episode 1, but it ought to tell you like the sort of like impact that the show left on me from just watching those first 5 episodes. Like it's always been in the back of my mind, I really need to go back and finish that whenever I have time.
Yeah.
And whenever we had asked, because I was trying to get everything set up and wouldn't have my VPN ready to go to be able to do Kiki's delivery service, Blue was like, well, it's your turn. So what anime do you want to cover? And I was like, I have just the one.
But it also goes to show the fact that you did stop after episode 5. Like, if that was Your Lie in April, you wouldn't have stopped after episode 5. You would have still made time to continue watching it prior to this. That goes to show that, although it is really good to have your mind to watch it, it wasn't in the forefront of your mind to watch it immediately.
Well, I need to go through and see what else came out around that time, because something happened. Actually, I know exactly what happened. I moved to Clayton whenever that show was coming out. And the rinky-dink shitty cabin that I was staying in, I can't say it was shitty. The cabin was really nice and very well taken care of. But the internet was shit. The internet was so bad. Although I can't say anything because also the cabin was where I first got introduced to your streams. So hey, silver lining.
Yeah. But I also think that if it had been Your Lie in April, you would have put it further forward on your list of to watch, and you wouldn't have waited so long to watch it. So I think that goes to show that it is probably like a solid 8, because although, it is really good, and you do want to watch it and it stayed in the back of your mind, it's not at that 10, I need to consume it right now, watch it immediately kind of thing.
Well, I'm also kind of curious how it would have been with Your Lie in April had I watched it week to week, like most people would have back then on Crunchyroll, versus like I watched it on Netflix once it was fully out to where I could binge it. So it's one of those things to where with this one, like I was watching it week to week for the first 5 weeks because I was really excited whenever it came out. So I I don't know. Like, it's really hard to compare the two whenever I didn't watch Your Lie in April week to week. So I can't, like,
Yeah.
I literally binged Your Lie in April in a day. Like, 24
Yeah.
hours, I binged that show.
Yeah.
So I kind of, like, I don't know. You're probably right in that, like, Your Lie in
We'll never
April
know.
was one of those shows. But I don't, like, I can't give a true and honest answer to that, though.
Yeah, makes sense. But anyways, unless you have anything else to contribute to the conversation, we've been talking for 3.5 hours. So we best wrap this up.
Yeah, I legitimately thought this episode was going to go like an hour and 45 minutes.
Me too. I didn't think that this was going to be a long one, but apparently we had a lot to say.
We had a lot to talk about. However, I do have something to contribute to the conversation, but not about the podcast conversation.
Oh.
We have lovely plugs to go through, like Blue streams almost every day between Monday through Saturday from 8 to... You stream till 10 now, right?
Sometimes 11.
Yeah, so
yeah, it's kind of debated between 2 and 3 hours.
Yeah, between 8 to 10 to 11 Mountain Standard Time, 10 to 1 a.m. for me in Eastern Standard Time. Whatever works, whatever time zone you're in, you can
Whatever
do the
time
math.
zone you're in.
I'm too lazy to do it, even though math is my favorite subject. You can find her at twitch.tv/Blue Lavender. Instagram.
Yeah, I will also just...
Do what?
Oh, I'll just throw my 2 cents there that my schedule may be changing recently because Brad and I have recording for these podcasts to do. Who would have ever thought that we have to record and edit these? No, they just magically appear. And because of that, my schedule may be changing on Twitch. And I may be taking a day off during the week specifically for podcast recording time because, you know, day jobs and stuff happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then you can also find her on Instagram and the Twitter at Blue Lavender STM. Like I said, with an A, not an E.
Lavender.
And then I stream sometimes. I don't know. Like, my stream schedule is an absolute shit show right now. I might stream
well, you
one
just
day a
moved.
week. I might stream 6 days a week. Actually, I won't go back to that. That's too much right now. I've got way too much going on.
Yeah, well, you just literally moved, so
well, I moved back saying, like, hey, like, I'll have more time to do all these things and stream and whatnot. And then I get moved back, and I'm like, I've gained a social life.
Just kidding. Yeah, but yeah, you can find Brad at twitch.tv/BradCarterGaming. And then you're also on the socials at Brad Carter Gaming as well, although you don't have a Twitter.
Listen, Twitter had to get burned with fire. However, I am the main one that runs the at BnB anime Twitter account. So you can...
Although I did tweet twice today from it.
Look at you go. I think you've legitimately tweeted more than I have. And I
yeah, you normally just tweet out when the new episodes come out, don't you? And we are trying to be more active on our socials for the podcast, so drop us a follow. Also, like I did mention before, our website has recently had a big old glow up, so yeah, if you want to check that out, go drop us a follow over on the website and check it out because it looks all pretty and it's nice now. And that also has all of the links for the social media and all of our prior episodes contact information and all of that kind of jazz. Is right on there. So if you want to send us an email to give us a recommendation for a future episode or tell us that we're beautiful people, we will also take that as well.
I'm accepting all compliments, just saying.
All compliments.
Also, constructive criticism, not just being a jerk. We
Please don't
like
be
jerks.
hateful.
I'm the only one allowed to be a jerk here.
Yeah, he's so mean. Can't you tell? I'm being held at gunpoint against my will. Yeah, at gunpoint with my consensually at gunpoint. Like what was my thought process there on clarifying that it was against my will? I'm being held consensually at gunpoint.
Yeah, consensually at gunpoint with like what 1,000 or 2,000 miles between us.
Right? Yeah, it's a real long gun. It's like it's not even that it's got a long range. The gun is just long.
It is my
It's a pistol with those pool tubes. What are the pool noodles. It's just got like loads of pool noodles taped to the front of it, and it's just stretching all the way across America and into Canada, and just so that you can get the perfect angle to fire that bullet.
I'm now going to need art of this. I'm going to have to make art of this at some point.
But anyways, we're going to stop rambling. So thank you guys so much for listening. We do very much appreciate it. And we will be back next week, hopefully with Kiki's delivery service if everything all works out. But if not, it'll be a sports anime. So get excited if you're a sports kind of person like me. And Brad, actually. Brad did a lot of sports as well. So yeah, because that's going to be happening. And yeah.
Yeah, that is it. So thanks for listening. We greatly appreciate it. Y'all are the best. And we will catch y'all next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.